Everybody, Roar the Lions UK, Matthew Turner here, just waiting for Ashley Soden to come home and Ryan McCluskey to join us. But I didn't want to delay, I thought we'd come on right now and see how you guys are doing before we start the show proper, so I hope you're all well. Hope you've had a good weekend. I am still not over not being in Detroit anymore, if I'm honest. It's, reality is a sobering reality. As always, if you've got any questions for the show, get them in. And I will get them in the show later. We're talking some news, some signings, some positional updates, tryout players for Rookie Minicamp, and then we're going to do a deep dive on the signed UDFAs. That doesn't include the guys that we've signed as a result of Rookie Minicamp, which has come out in the last day or two. We've just not had enough time as yet. But we do have a small bit on the guy who tried out from the UK, because got to do that. But yeah. Say hi, everybody. Get a shout out. Dan Pask in the building, subscribing at Tier 1 for 26 months. Says, hey, guys, glad to be off for your show. Hey, Dan, hope you're doing well, my man. And then in the building on YouTube right now, we have Carlton Wood, Brent DeWitt, Michael Lucchese, and Donkey Kong. If you haven't said hello, come say hello and get a shout out, as well as us having a super chat by Jeff Hurley. $10. Thank you, Jeff. You are almost single-handedly bankrolling the show at this point. Much appreciated, my guy. Brent DeWitt says Super Bowl or bust. Yeah. Carlton says, I'm a bit dubious about UDFA wide receivers, i.e. Dylan Drummond, Sage Surratt, etc. They never seem to stay on, do they? That is the thing that gives me trepidation as well. Never mind the fact that we're actually quite deep in terms of depth at wide receiver. Maybe at the top is slightly lacking, but you've just got some of these kind of camp heroes that always seem to stick around. And is Isaiah Williams going to be any better than those guys? I don't know. Maybe, but we will get into it. Super Dome or bust, in fact, Brent said, which I'm guessing is because it's in the Superdome this year, is it not, the Super Bowl? I think you're right. Gotta make sure. I can't remember. No, this year's in the Allegiant in Las Vegas. No, that was last year. I don't know. Anyway, hey, Rye.
Hey, all right.
I'm good. How are you?
Good, yeah. Just busy.
Busy. Yeah. You having to cover for someone today? That's rubbish. Is it normal?
I think going forward, I think it's gonna be more regular. It could be even put in, like say, as a part of thing for me going forward. So I have to speak to work about say, and hopefully it won't hamper my availability too much. But
if it does, it does. Money's more important, man. I'm presuming if you have to go on call like this that you get paid extra, or is it all part of salary?
I'm salaried. We'll see how they do it. But yeah, going forward, we'll see what happens.
Fair. Is Lorraine still in France?
No, she stayed one day. So she flew at 5 a.m., got there at like 9 a.m. their time, killed a lot of time, saw the gig at 6, and then got up at 6, about 5, 6 a.m.
Oh
and then flew all the way home.
I
mean, she loves a great flyover, but yeah, she paid for it the day after. She had 9 hours sleep in 2 days.
Yikes. Like ouch. But it looked like the gig was well worth it.
Oh, yeah, she'd still do it again and be just as unhappy when she got home and probably drained.
Was it Taylor Swift and Paramore?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I would die. I would die to be that gig.
In August.
Yeah, that'd be really cool.
One point, who's Travis Kelce's friend? Apparently, it was Ross Travis, a former Detroit Lions tight end. Apparently, like his best friend.
Oh,
he was here in 2022, but never played a snap, I believe.
I don't remember the names, so
I don't either. Lorraine was like, "Who's this guy?" Playing for Lions. Are like, I don't think he did, but according to the website online, he was a member of our team.
What was his name again?
Ross Travis.
God
he might have been a practice squadder in 2022.
Maybe he was a tryout player and he's counting it. How are you doing, Ash?
Yeah, he was a tryout in 2021. practice. He was on a practice.
But that was the
But
last year he was even in the league. I think he called it a day after that.
Yeah. Signed for us on the 28th of December 2021. But yeah, I'm all right running home. Just don't put your jerseys on a boil wash, people, because the arms come off.
You fool. What do you put it on a 90-degree wash for? It's a delicate.
Because I didn't realise until it was too late. I was doing it. I put it on because it was resting my whites. I was like, yeah, perfect. I have to stay and remove my whites. Everything perfect. Comes out and I'm like, what the fuck? Shit. Okay, it's a 90-degree wash. All the glues come off the things. That's why this happens. So, yeah, if you stain your lovely white jerseys, do not put them on a 90-degree wash because otherwise you're going to be spending a lot of money buying a new one.
Right, I know that Ryan is on the clock, so we're going to get into this quickly. So let's do it. Yeah. You guys ready?
Yeah.
Yep.
Recording in progress.
Welcome to another edition of the Roar of the Lions UK podcast, episode 270, Word to the Rookie. My name is Matthew Turner, alongside Ryan McCluskey and Ashley Soden. How are you doing, boys?
Doing great. Well, doing good. A bit heartbroken that AO wasn't signed, but it's fine. My king will find somewhere else to go.
He could wind up on the practice squad.
Oh, please.
How you doing, Ryan? You all right?
I'm good, thanks. How are you guys?
Pretty solid. I busted my Achilles on Friday night and I can walk again now. So I've been having my ankle on ice for the last few days, which is not the most fun. It's not as good as it sounds, should we say. I did it walking. I mean, I should have known better, but you know, that's what happens when you get to my age.
You should have just made a full story how you did it.
Yeah. Could have been a sexually related escapade, but instead I just tried to walk.
Okay, you went completely. I was going to say, pretend that you were with me on Saturday up in Lincoln, running around in the field for 6 hours. But if you want to go for the escapades, then you do, you boss.
Yeah, I think I'd rather. But there you go. Let's get into this. We are talking news. We're talking rookie minicamp, and then we're doing a deeper dive into our UDFA class. Just to start off, please do join our Discord channel. It's a hotbed of activity even through the off-season. It's a great community of Lions fans and fans from around the league, and we welcome you being there. The link is in the chat right now. College football podcast on hiatus, but I know that Ant is hard at work doing the conference previews even as we speak. So when that comes back in a few weeks' time, we're going to dive straight into college football, looking ahead to the 2024-25 season. Please don't forget to like the show and sub to the podcast. Appreciate you making those gestures. I know that it's a trope by now for every content creator, but only because it really does make a big difference, especially for the smaller streamers like ourselves. Twitch affiliated, YouTube monetized, tip jar down below. You know what to do. And also there is a merch store and a feedback form if you're so inclined. Let's get straight on with this. The Lions have made some signings. First of all, 4 draft picks have been signed. The latter 4, Manu, Vaki, Wingo and Mahogany, all signed. Arnold and Rakestraw still unsigned. Basically, it's because they can demand more in guarantees than the others can. The contract values are the same, but they can ensure that effectively they definitely will get the money. It's part of the agent's job to do that. There's a good Pride of Detroit piece that goes into why in a bit more depth if you want to have a look at that. But in short, there we go. Nothing to see here other than that. But the other signings that we have, boys, since we last spoke, the safety CJ Moore returns after the expiration of his gambling suspension. He was banned for the entirety of the 2023 season after betting on NFL games. And I know that he isn't here, but I feel inclined to pay homage to Anthony Fitzpatrick and his, I would say, outrage. I think that's probably not too strong at CJ Moore being allowed to return. Not necessarily for CJ Moore's sake, but I think more for Jamison Williams and how much he got lambasted for basically doing less of a bad thing than CJ Moore did. So with that in mind, boys, to set the scene, how are you feeling about CJ Moore returning?
I want to bring him back. I'd have washed my hands of him. They clearly value what he does in special teams and as a part-time safety, but I imagine it has to be like bare minimum, probably what vet minimum, whatever the lowest they can pay him is to try to earn favour. I think he'll be on a very short leash. Like I say, at the moment, like I say, he drops a stinker or anything gets said, I think a bit cut. But it wouldn't surprise me if he has a really good year, if he does earn another extra year after. Like I say, it feels like a trial period almost that's been paid. A bit like an apprenticeship. He's on an apprenticeship. So they're probably going to treat him like you would a 16-year-old rookie. Make him make the cups of tea, treat him like a bitch. Because he can't say boo. But yeah. We'll see what he offers on special teams, and if he makes the team, it feels like he's got an uphill battle to make the roster. But safety depth, honestly, we really need to sign a safety. Like I said, we need to bring someone into the rotation because it's looking paper thin if we lost a starter.
Yeah, so I'm probably the highest out of everyone on the podcast for CJ Moore, which is no surprise if you guys listened this time last year when the news broke that he'd be banned for this. I was heartbroken because of that special team stuff and because of what he's done on defense when he's been played. For me, I think CJ Moore obviously, I have to say, putting aside the gambling stuff, because I can't comment on that really. If the team trusts him enough to bring him back and think he's paid his penance and that's up to them. For the most part, they've been pretty good with character stuff. I know obviously last year we had a few bumps in the road with Bugs and CJGJ, but for the most part, they're very, very good at the character stuff. So if they're happy for him to be back in the locker room, I'm happy. I think he could be this year's JRM. I think he could really shock in some defense, like uptick in defensive snaps. We're talking about a guy who, yes, I know most of his time came in week 17, 18 against usually the Green Bay Packers and Jordan Love. But this is a guy in those two games he played in those last end of game season games, interception in both. I think CJ Moore could be adequate backup for Kirby Joseph as your sort of pass coverage safety, while Iffy is more your sort of box safety, which is one of the reasons I was high on my guy AO, because he's more of that box safety kind of guy as well. But I think CJ Moore could be a great backup free safety, great special teamer. Like, we've got one of the most exciting special teams now with JRM, with CJ Moore, and now with Varkey. Dave Phipp is going to have some mad genius plays cooked up for this year, and I can't wait to see him.
For some reason, your sound's just a little low, by the way. I don't know if you can get a bit closer to your mic. It's not too bad. It's fine, but it's just a little low. For myself on CJ Moore, I think that the outrage on him coming back in terms of the gambling stuff is more a reaction against how the fans treated JMO, and not actually about the severity of the bans themselves. And at the end of the day, it wasn't an isolated incident by one person going rogue. It was a thing that affected many of our guys, all of whom were just a bit naive, and he bet on an NFL game, which has got to clearly be a no-no. But I kind of say that this is a kind of fool me once situation, and if you fool me twice, I think you're dead to me at that point. But at this point, I'm willing to kind of forgive and forget. And lest we forget that CJ Moore, when he actually had to come in relief and play on defense, was amazing. Like, he came in and legitimately looked like he could be a part of the rotation in a limited capacity. Think about what maybe Melifonwu was regarded as about 12 months ago. Like, you were hoping that maybe he could come in and give that sort of snap level, and he did. Obviously, Melifonwu really kind of exceeded those expectations. But for me, he was an ascending player when he got banned. So I'm willing to kind of go, you know what, I'm willing to bet on your upside, especially compared to, as Ryan rightly said, we need a safety. He comes in immediately safety 3/4, depending on where you're slotting in Brian Branch as a starter. If you slot him in as a safety starter, then Moore is number 4. But, you know, we clearly need someone. And safety 5 there may be room for, given the new kickoff rules. Safety is more important than cornerback now. So, you know, it's going to be interesting to see how it all throws out. But I think he's a shoo-in to make the roster at this point. But we shall see. I mean, safety is one of those interesting positions, and there are so many of them available that he may not be even in a couple of weeks' time. So let's find out. Another signing as well, the defensive tackle Kyle Pico, 6'1", 305 pounds. He's 30 years old, formerly of Tennessee, where he was with our new defensive line coach, Terrell Williams. He's a 3-5 tech. He's only had 2 sacks in his career and only had 7 pressures last season, so it was a bit of a down year for him. But thought of highly enough by Terrell Williams, boys, that we've brought him in as that sort of vet depth that we kind of needed at that position. But it kind of feels like he's in competition with Wingo to be the backup at that position. And, you know, before it was like we really needed a 3 technique to rotate a Liam, and now we've got kind of a guy with experience in the league and a draft pick there too.
Yeah, exactly. Like, I've been banging on about that kind of need for a while, haven't I? It's that and ex-receiver. We've kind of solved one now, and I'm resigned to the fact that the other is probably going to be next year's concern, if that. I'm happy with it. Knows the coach, even if it is kind of a signing we bring in for camp, just as that vet guy, and then when it comes to enter camp, he's done his sort of on-field coaching kind of thing where he helps Wingo, maybe Liam a bit, maybe Chris Smith, who obviously we've also got in the UDFA from last year from Notre Dame, who we still got around. If he's just doing that kind of thing, and then we say thank you for your service, be one of our vet guys in the practice squad in case we have injuries, I'm completely happy with that. We saw last year we need a bit of depth down the practice squad because when Aline went down, there's panic stations. We were considering putting Kamish or Pascal full-time at that, brought in Tyson Alawalu for the role. It's a good depth signing. Like, it's not going to set the world alight. I'm not expecting him to come in and just do like a Snacks Harrison, like defensive line revival where he just is great first this season. But it's good enough for me. Just keep him around.
Yeah, it's similar to last season. We brought in Christian Covington, didn't we, before training camp as an interior depth guy that's an elder statesman. Like they said, his numbers have never lit up the world, but we just seem to have a habit of just plugging through interior tackles. Like you say, they just pick up niggles, they get stingers. We can play 3 or 4 guys on that position in the game sometimes where they're just rotating in and out. So if he makes a team, then he'll offer depth like Tyson did last year. If he don't, then, like I say, he's there for guys like Wingo and that to learn. So, yeah, it's all upside. There's no knock to it.
Yeah, he's bounced around the league since he came in. He's signed with Denver, I think, as an undrafted free agent in 2016. He's then played with Buffalo, Tennessee, the Las Vegas Raiders, and then back to Tennessee to finish off his career so far. He played the most games of his career last season with 10 starts out of 13 games. He never previously played more than 8 games in a season, and both of the sacks in his career both came at Tennessee in 2021, although his best season by far, according to the average approximate value metric on Pro Football Reference, was last season. So he'd never before had more than 2, and he had 5 last year. So it goes to show you that he was contributing and ascending, although at age 30, there's a question as to how much further that can go. But if Williams believes in him, at least as a camp body, that's a good start. A couple of other signings, although we'll get onto them in a bit more depth in just a minute. The wide receiver Caden Davis and the tight end Parker Hesser have signed after attending Rookie Minicamp. They're the only successful people that we've heard about so far, although, you know, the night is still young. We may see more of these tryout players signed so far. But let's talk about... no, we won't talk about Rookie Minicamp yet. Boys, just those 2 signings. Obviously, it's a good sign for players getting tryouts that they're actually getting signed, and Hesser especially has some experience in this league.
Yeah, he played full-back tight end, didn't he, for the Falcons, like 45, didn't he? So he's used to playing that versatile role. Kind of what maybe a Jason Kabinda kind of role, that's how they see him. Like I say, he can be a lead blocker, but also go on the end of the line. We do like that kind of figure. So that's fine with me. And yeah, Davis, like I say, he spent some time last year with Arizona, but also didn't he play for he played for the Michigan Panthers as well?
Yes.
He's known to the stadium, he's known to the city. Like I say, he's had time in the USFL. So yeah, it makes sense. He's got a tall, rangy kind of figure. So yeah, I feel like he's someone that has got very minimal wear and tear. They may find a special teams role for him. May try him out as a returner as well. Like I say, he may just find a body out the game. Could be wide receiver 5, wide receiver 6. It could be fair competition to someone like Antoine Green. Like I say, so that's fine by me. Like I say, we do need these two positions of depth because we have seen in recent years, like tight ends, we have picked up some injuries. And there were some bad ones as well, so we're really testing the depth last year.
Yeah, so for me, it is special teams. So stealing a bit from Riz's rookie minicamp report, we did have Davis in at returner for a couple of reps. And then with how he evaluated the new return drills, it seems those bigger receivers, tight ends, those kind of players are the ones who can be using a lot more on those kind of special team snaps. Big X receiver, not athletic, but good blocking tight end, seems to fit special teams. And the fun thing is, I know Matt will know it because obviously he's done that little thing, but Parker Hesse, aka the tight end for Iowa, right between TJ Hawkinson and Sam Laporta. So it's yet another Iowa tight end to the Lions. Like, we seemingly have a type A, but I like it. Obviously, I wish someone else would have signed because it would have been good depth for us, as we'll get into in a bit. But the team obviously like them for special teams, and they're going to stick around. Probably won't love Caden Davis as much as I loved Dylan Drummond last year, but he could carve out a little spot in my heart if he's really good on special teams.
This is the really funny thing about Parker Hesse. He's been described as an Iowa tight end. You want to know how many snaps he played at Iowa as tight end?
0. Wasn't he he was a D-line?
1.
He was a tackle, wasn't
He was an edge. He was an edge. He played 2,541 snaps at edge, and he played 1 at tight end, and he's being described as an Iowa tight end. Not only was he an Iowa edge player, his PFF grades from 2017-2018 were 84.7 and 81.9. So this guy in the Big Ten was no mug at the edge. And then he moved.
Why is he playing tight end?
Yeah, exactly. He should follow the example of another former Iowa edge who was on the Lions. Boys, we've got the next Matt Nelson.
Oh, God. No! Yeah, I just found that so weird. I was like, I will just have a look at the PFF grades of all of the guys I can find from the tryout players just to see if I can find something. And for Hesse, it was just like, well, that's not right. And then you hear the commentators say Iowa tight end between Hawkinson and whoever. And I'm like, that's wrong. Like, maybe he was being cross-trained there because, like, you wouldn't play 1 snap at tight end just for shits and giggles. But God knows. Anyway, a little bit of positional clarity on some of the other draft picks, and then we're going to get into rookie minicamp and then the UDFAs in more detail. So this comes from the Ray Agnew interview. And Manu, there's several interviews that happened. So Manu stated that the Lions have been wrapping him exclusively at tackle, and Ray Agnew confirmed that they prefer him at tackle despite the news when he was drafted that they were thinking about having him at guard, which I think was just a mistake and a misnomer. They will be cross-training him at guard as well, but the fact that they want him to be versatile I don't think is strange given what's happened throughout this regime. If you're a backup, you're expected to play multiple positions, so that is just what it is. Frankly, if we play a 6'8" guy at guard, I'm going to scream because it's just not going to work. So
it works for Dan Skipper when he's been there a couple of times, and he's 6'9".
Actually, he has looked better at guard, hasn't he, than tackle?
Yeah.
I stand corrected. I dislike you. Anyway. And Sione Vaki has repped exclusively as a running back so far. Ray Agnew says that he thinks his value in special teams will become clear with the new rules as it is, and I quote, catered to his skill set. And boys, this really speaks, I think, to a lot of what we've done in this off-season, because it does seem to prioritize those people who have vision in a short space of the field, which I would say is more akin to a running back rather than a corner or a wide receiver's perspective at returner. But because the 5-yard gap that they have is so small that really it does necessitate people being bigger bodies that you can actually push people out of the way rather than quick people who can get to the ball quickly. So looking at someone like Vaki just isn't really a surprise now when you think about it.
No, because it's going to be a position where you catch the ball, you're going to have time to make one cut. You're going to have to pick your lane once, because like I say, you're not going to have time to, like I say, some wide receivers, they fanny about a little bit, they cut back and forth. That's gone. Like you say, you get the hole now and you hit it. And I said that's a running back. It's a north and south kind of thing. The way he was drafted as a running back, I wasn't surprised. Like I said, I expect him, like I said, to be a potential primary kick returner. And I like it. I said I think it would be great. It wouldn't surprise me if he scores a touchdown special teams. And he doesn't see the end zone as a running back. It just wouldn't surprise me. It says, they've drafted him because I said that not because of the rule, but the new rule changes do cater to what he offers. So yeah, he's shorter, he's stouter. Like I say, he's stronger. He's good running through contact. Like I say, he doesn't shy away from it. So yeah, I think he could be the most surprising draft pick we have of the year, in just what we might get out of him across the board in general.
Yeah. So again, stealing primarily from Riz's minicamp report. Varky's not only good at returning the ball, but as a coverage player, as a gunner, supposedly because of that experience of being a safety and a running back, he can just see how the block's being set up and gets to the point quick sharp. This could be Varky could be a starting gunner for us because of the new kickoff rules, it's not going to be so much your cornerbacks anymore. It's going to be your safeties, and he's totally perfect for that. So I think Riz said it, but I agree. If it is we spent a fourth rounder on a Pro Bowl, All Pro level kind of special teamer, I'm extremely happy with that because we're at that point now with how good our roster is, where we are in terms of our conference, the division, and the league. Special teams could be the deciding factor between us winning and losing games. So I want to get as much resources as we can allocate to there without letting everything else go to pot. So Varky being there, great's good there. And then obviously Manu, again, stealing from Riz's practice report, had some issues with his mechanics and that. The tackle wasn't getting his hands in the right place. But then supposedly Hank doing Hank things, takes him aside, gets him a drill that he's doing in between stuff. And suddenly there's a rep against Nate Lynn where he just latches on, perfect hand placement. And I think Riz's description was a snowplow against a trash can. That's what we want. That's what we're drafting for. If it does worry me a bit, and I know Riz again had a question about it on his post-draft mailbag, that if Hank doesn't stick around next year, the Manu experiment could fall flat on our face and we'll look stupid. But if Hank sticks around and he gets time with this guy, the ceiling is so high with him. We could have the next Jordan Mailata. Dare I say, if the pass protection goes pretty well as well, the next Trent Williams, because there's another guy who's an absolute mauler in the run game. That's definitely worth a trade up into the fourth. So I'm happy with both Manu and Varky. We trade up for them. If they play roles for us this year, great.
All right, let's talk about the rookie minicamp. We're going to focus to start with on the tryout players exclusively because we're going to deep dive into the UDFAs shortly afterwards. I am anticipating the tryout players to be a little brief because, of course, the information on the majority of them is fairly sparse. We're going to start with quarterbacks, going into running backs, wide receivers, tight ends, defensive linemen, linebackers, corners, and safeties. So we start with the quarterbacks, and they are Theo Day from Northern Iowa and Cade Peterson from Grand Valley State, local lad. Theo Day from Northern Iowa, 6'5", 231 pounds, played for Michigan State in 2019 before having a COVID year in 2020. He was basically a redshirt in 2019 with Michigan State. Had 6 snaps. And then Northern Iowa from 21 to 23, including an exceptional 2022 year with Northern Iowa with a 93.7 PFF grade, including 93.9 passing grade. And then Cade Peterson, well, he plays at a level not tracked by PFF, but he is regarded as an excellent, accurate quarterback with a really big arm. I'm not sure that he is necessarily the most mobile of people. Riz did talk about him at length on his mailbag, so go and listen to Jeff Risden if you want to hear a bit more about him. Boys, any thoughts about these quarterbacks? I think that this is maybe a step up from who we've had at camp in the past, potentially. Excluding Hooker last year, who was, of course, a rookie, but I mean, like, the camp bodies that we're bringing in.
Maybe. Like, I know Adrian Martinez, so our last year's guy, is now a candidate for the MVP for the UFL. He has a bit more experience. This does seem a bit more like your Goff kind of guy. So no, Peterson really went into a bit more depth. We've even said very much like Goff, but just doesn't have the arm strength that Goff does, and does have some things. I think it was Peterson he mentioned with the snaps that when he's under center, he's basically sitting on the ground. But yeah, these are guys that can do our system a lot better than Martinez can, than Jordan Tamaru can, like all those kind of guys. So it's worth a shot. Obviously, we need the QBs there anyway to throw to the receivers, and obviously Davis must have done well enough, as we'll mention in a bit, to get signed. But if one of them sticks around the practice squad, won't be shocked, but at the same time, won't be shocked if they don't stick around either.
I think a time will come where, like I say, we need the next clipboard holder. Nate Sudfeld won't be around forever. David Blau wasn't. We've had guys like that in the past that just kind of latch on. You don't ever really expect them to see the field, but then, like the Bears, like I say, they got a very surprising result out of Tyson Bagent, who was kind of playing the same level, like I say, a couple of years ago. So I'm all for bringing in, like I say, the local kids, the really small school kids. Like I say, it's not like pocket passers. Like I say, good, strong, mobile, good live arms. So yeah, they kind of deliver what we want for, like I say, and they do, yeah, they help everybody in camp. They kind of run the style of offense that we want to see, which then means we can see the best out of the weapons that we bring in as well to come alongside them. So you never know, one of these guys may latch on to a practice squad in the NFL, like I say, or as you say, well, they will now be the next guys that end up playing for the Birmingham Stallions or the Houston Renegades and the Arlington, like that. So yeah, it's good for them. These guys need it. Like I said, gets them a bit of film and a bit of coverage. Like I said, whether they're going to play in the NFL or not. So yeah, I'm fine with any quarterback could bring in.
Moving on to the running backs, and we only have one at camp this time, and that is from Hillsdale, running back Michael Herzog. And he's a local lad. He's from Windsor, I believe. And there's not a huge amount of stats on him, but he has been drafted in the Canadian Football League by Grey Cup champions, the Montreal Alouettes. He was taken as the 56th overall pick by Montreal, trying out with us, obviously, so he's seeing about his NFL opportunity before probably going up to take a CFL opportunity up there. He did his ACL in March of 2021, but posted a monster 2023 after coming back from injury. So playing in D2 in the, I'm assuming it's called the GMAC. He had 230 carries for 1,333 yards and 21 touchdowns, which is the conference record. That's an average of 121 rushing yards a game, and he had 172 all-purpose yards per game, as well as being a standout on special teams. His 40-yard dash was 4.55 seconds in the CFL Combine, and he had the best vertical jump of the running backs at 39 inches. So, boys, he may not have been a very heralded prospect coming from the D2 level, but the guy certainly has production at his level. And, I mean, at 4.55 and 39 inches, he's got long speed and he's pretty explosive.
I think it's a great option for him to, like I said, to be at the camp. And I know the CFL and I know William Stanback, like I said, a long time Alouette has gone now. And like I said, defending Grey Cup champions spent a good pick on him. I think, like I said, Windsor Canadian, I think he could do a really good job in the CFL. Like I said, I try to defend their East Division title, like the Grey Cup. So I'm glad to see him here. Like you say, he's clearly got some athleticism to him. Like I say, a small school, but very productive. Like I said, this is kind of, like I said, they own his rights now, but he wants to make it in the NFL. Like I say, for me, I don't mind running back depth. Like you say, because we've seen a lot of guys come through the doors in recent years. Like I say, we've still got, like I say, had like guys like Zonovan Knight and that, like I say, coming round. Like I say, got the Bar kid, got Reynolds. Like I say, we do keep a lot of these guys. We kept Jamar Jefferson on the practice squad for like how many years? Like I say, so he kind of looks at this team and thinks, yeah, they keep guys round so that don't see the field, just in case one day they come good or they pick up an injury, and then I may have my name called. So it kind of makes sense for him to attend this one. Like I say, local, and he may just have a chance at sticking around on a practice squad. So yeah, best of both worlds for him. If it don't work, then he goes to join a great CFL team if he doesn't latch on to another NFL team.
Yeah, exactly. Like, and we needed another back in camp because we can't just keep giving as much as we probably wanted to. We can't just keep giving Varkey every snap, so we needed someone to rotate with him. So, and yeah, if he sticks around, then it's just another good find. We seemingly, whoever our Canadian scout is probably very, very trusted in the room now because obviously we've got Herzog, we've got Manu, and we've got Betts. So it seems we're really targeting that sort of area, which makes sense where we're placed. Obviously, me and Matt don't know a lot, having seen that bridge now and looks over into Canada. But yeah, if he sticks around, great. If not, if not, as you said, he's got a very good Canadian Football League team to go to, and he'll probably tear it up there and become their offensive player of the year. And I won't be surprised.
Moving on
At
to
some point, I'm expecting us to sign Nathan Rock. We just need to complete the Canadian.
Oh,
trade. He's now he's on the Giants, hasn't
he? Yeah.
Moving on to the tryout wide receivers, there are 3. Devin Maddox from Toledo, Drew Dixon from Limestone, and Caden Davis from Northwest Missouri State, who has been signed by the Lions as a result. Devin Maddox, then, from Toledo, he is 5'9" and 176 pounds, so as slight as you can get, really, at wide receiver. He has played at Toledo for the last 6 seasons. He redshirted year 1. He's been a rotational player in 19, 20, and 23, and there was a full-time starter in 21 and 22. In his career, he's had 125 receptions for 1,560 yards and 14 touchdowns. Ran the ball a little bit, but not really. Did do some returning in his career in 2019, 21, and 2023 with 42 punt returns for an average of 8 yards per return and 6 kick returns in his redshirt freshman year. But in the most recent season, as a backup, only 17 receptions for 141 yards and a touchdown. PFF grades don't exactly jump off the scale. Boys, for me, this is a bit of a throwing a bone to a fairly local guy, Toledo, just being over the border in Ohio. And, let's see if he catches on. But I don't know many guys at 5'9", 176, which really, make it in this league. Never mind his pedigree.
He's going to need special teams. Special teams will be the only way he can make the team. So, yeah, the Rockets have been really good recently. And I have enjoyed watching the Rockets for many years because I enjoyed watching Dustin Crum, former quarterback, who's now in the CFL. But yeah, to be that small and that slender, we saw it with when we drafted Jamal Agnew. He had to make on special teams and he had a good NFL career out of it. You kind of have to go down that line, that small and that slender. Like I said, the numbers, it's just too often in and out of the team. Like I say, just not been able to hold down starting up long enough. But yeah, we do have a habit of, like I say, bringing in local guys that you just want a chance. Like I say, whether it's in the NFL or whether it's other organisations that will watch these and they will scoop them up if they do see something in them. So he's probably looking at the bigger picture.
Yeah, well, you say that. How does a 5'8", 180 pound receiver sound to you? Because that's Leaf. It's basically us just it's giving throwing a bone, but it's someone very much, it seems like, with Leaf's skill set. So it's us maybe while Leaf's doing his own thing, just seeing what his kind of skill set will do in this new special teams. I won't be surprised if that's the entire reason. We're throwing him the bone, but at the same time, the team's getting that sort of experimental data out of it, if that makes sense. So I can see both sides.
Maybe, but an inch smaller and 5 pounds heavier at that height and weight kind of makes a difference to me. Leaf looks pretty small, but he's pretty well built. I think being an inch taller and 5 pounds lighter is not great, but we'll see.
I think it's big enough. I'm totally not saying that because I'm 5'9", 170.
There we go. Moving on to Drew Dixon. Now, he's had an interesting college career. I actually don't know where the Limestone University Saints play, but no, I have no idea. Never mind. Anyway, he is 6'3" and 198 pounds, so a bit of bigger built guy. Ryan may remember him from some time ago when he played for Arizona, 2018 to 2020. He was mainly a backup in 18 and 20, but did play as a starter in 2019. Then COVID happened, and then he went away for a year. 2021 seemed to just not happen for him whatsoever. Came back in 2022 for the Limestone University Saints in his redshirt senior season. I don't know what happened in 2023 because, I mean, I have no idea. There's no record of him whatsoever. But he would have been a redshirt super senior, so he's an older prospect. But in his redshirt senior season for Limestone, he hauled in 28 catches for 592 yards and 5 touchdowns, including some games where he had like 8 catches for 167 and 2. You know, this is a height weight guy that I can see working out. I did have a brief smile because I saw his hometown was Tucson, Arizona, and if you get that reference, well done. Boys, this is the sort of height weight guy that we're looking for to kind of fill that X role, and maybe compared to someone like Drew, I was going to say like Drew Dixon, but that's who we're talking about. Compared to Devin Maddox, maybe just has a bit of an easier route if he does get picked up. Of course, he hasn't been yet, but we shall see.
Yeah, like I say. So he was a hometown prospect. Like I say, he got an FBS offer from the Wildcats, accepted it. Like I say, might have had to walk on. I can't remember. That's the last time the Sun Devils were good, probably. 2020, like I said, we were struggling then, if I'm honest. But do you know what? It's an interesting career. Like I said, I'm guessing D3, NAIA, Limestone. Sounds very small, but yeah, I mean, is it unfair that some are more blessed by God than others to have a nearly 200-pound 6-foot free frame? Will that help him and go a long way at the next level? Probably it will, yeah. And one good year of production, even though part of that it seems like he's kind of fallen off the face of the earth. He stands himself instead to get a shot because things like DJ Chark and Josh Reynolds, we've not had too many guys that kind of build. That's very much in the DJ Chark kind of range, who was like 6'4", 210. So he could bulk up to that if he wanted to. So you know what? He might be worth taking a flyer on and stashing on the practice squad and see what he can do if he can bulk up a little bit. But yeah, that's the kind of guy I want us to be looking at.
How dare you not know that Saints Field is obviously in Gaffney, South Carolina? How dare, like, I'm looking at myself. Probably the reason you didn't know that is because they were a women's college until 2020, and then they became co-educational. So it's only recently they've become that, but they play in the SAC in Div 2, I believe, looking it up. And he hasn't been doing much. He obviously played 2023, as you said, but then according to the only thing I can really find him recent, he basically took last year out, but he's been training with, and this is a name that will ring some bells for people, he's been training with Stanley Berryhill III.
Oh. He was very good for the Wildcats.
Yeah.
They must have kept tabs with him after all these years.
Yeah, and keeping the Wildcats, before he came and tried out for us, he was signed for another team in the division. The Packers originally signed him as a UDFA out of this draft class. And he, I think he must have renegaded on that and came to us because there's a post about him from his local high school about him. So he went to Arizona as a he came to a receiver, but he was a quarterback in high school. So he's one of those like kind of height, as you say, height-based speed guys, which is becoming more of a thing in college. I know, for example, FSU has a guy who hasn't really landed, but that's what happened to him. So he's one of them. He's an ex-receiver, so I'm all for it. And if he ends up on a practice squad, maybe get something out of him there. If it's just, again, another special teams thing, fair enough. If nothing comes of it and he goes to UFL, again, fair enough. It's what the rookie tryouts are for.
Been informed by Carlton Wood in the chat that the coach of Limestone is Mike Furry, who is a former Lion, played for the Lions between 2006 and 2008. So that's also an interesting link there as well. Let's move on to the final wide receiver who's trying out, who has been signed now, Caden Davis out of Northwest Missouri State. He has a year of experience in the league. He was on the practice squad of the Arizona Cardinals for almost the entire season. He was elevated to the active roster once, just before Christmas, and otherwise was signed to a reserve futures contract before being let go on April 30th, and we signed him just yesterday out of Northwest Missouri State, as I mentioned. And according to their website, he is a 2-time MIAA Academic Honor Roll student, so that very much is in keeping with the sort of players that we like to see. In his final year there in 2021, he led the Bearcats with 10 touchdowns and 714 yards and caught 44 passes, which was second, averaging 16 yards per catch and 55 yards per game, including 2 100-plus yard receiving games against Central Missouri and Missouri Southern. They also had he had a pair of touchdown receptions in a second-round NCAA playoff game against Harding. So as far as things go in terms of how important those things get at that level, he has performed, and clearly, boys, he's impressed enough that he's actually earned some time with us. I did hear from Riz that he obviously was doing a little bit of return work too, which is encouraging, because for these guys, being able to play special teams is going to be absolutely key.
Yeah, this guy, I suppose, compared to the others, he's got a bit more of a fleshed out resume, has some NFL experience already, which goes a long way. Like I say, latched on a practice squad, was activated and called up for some time, so he has been in a real life game scenario, and that will carry a lot of weight going forward because that's quite big for him. Like I say, he's been there, at least he's experienced what it's like to be in a game and what is expected of him. So for me, this guy probably has most hope. Like I say, of all the guys we will sign, or like they say, the mini tryouts, this guy probably has one of the better chances of latching on, because there might be some tape of him or like practice film that they can ask Cardinals for, so they will be able to see what they can do with him and what he has experience of doing and what kind of offense. So yeah, I like this move. Like I say, it's a potential win-win scenario. Like you say, he gets a chance to latch onto another NFL team, maybe find his way into a wide receiver rotation, and it won't lose. Like I said, there's no harm, no foul here. So it's good to see another kid get a chance in the league. So yeah, let's see what he can do.
Yeah, it makes sense because Cardinal, well, obviously the Cardinals signed him last year. Our former college scout, head of college scouting, went to the Cardinals to be their assistant GM. So it's just one of those where everyone I know obviously thinks of those connections going outwards, but it seems it's a two-way street. We must have got the inside track on this guy, got him in, and then liked him enough to stick him around. And yeah, special teams, offensive work, seems he did well enough in both, and now he's going to play around in camp. And then he could get a chance to impress in the preseason games, and we could have found ourselves a real gem at the X position, which is the one that I keep saying we need. So could work out very well for me.
Yeah, 6'1", 193 he is. So yeah, smaller perhaps at that X than you would ideally like, but someone who can probably definitely play it. Carlton in our chat rightly mentions that he was the receiver that Terry and Arnold got his interception on in practice. Although, I mean, if you watch it, they're going at half speed and the ball is just hanging up there a little bit. Like, I don't think that's a mark on him, particularly on Caden Davis anyway.
Didn't you see the Bears fans? That was Jared Goff throwing that ball. He's in great mid-season form according to the Bears fans.
Yeah, well.
I mean, I like to think I'd have had a chance at that ball, if I'm honest. I was jogging.
Right, let's get on to the only tight end tryout player who has also been signed. As we mentioned, that is Parker Hesse. Now, he has had 3 years of experience in the league, all with the Atlanta Falcons. He was undrafted at that time, and he has played in 28 games with 8 starts. He has 14 receptions on 17 targets, so good, nice high percentage. 132 yards, an average of 9.4 yards per catch, and 9 of his 14 receptions went for first downs. So all pretty good stuff. As I mentioned, he was a college defensive end, defensive lineman, outside linebacker type at Iowa. He was a contributor, a high contributor through all 4 of his seasons. He didn't have a redshirt year, so he just went all the way through straight to his senior year. He had let's see, 181 tackles, 30.5 tackles for a loss, 13.5 sacks, 2 interceptions, 1 for a touchdown, 8 passes defended, 4 forced fumbles, and 3 fumble recoveries. His best season was in 2017, where he had 10.5 tackles for a loss, 4 sacks, and an interception, as well as 3 passes defended, a fumble recovery, and 2 forced fumbles. So, immensely productive guy at that elite kind of Big Ten edge level, where, the offensive line's just pretty much so much better than anywhere else in the league. I presume at least the same was true in the late 2010s as it is now. The Big Ten always have had that rep, I think. Obviously converted to tight end, and while he hasn't had a huge amount of production, boys, he's been in the lineup, and he's been, fairly productive when it comes to it.
Yeah, I'd love to know who said, do you want to play tight end? It's quite an interesting mix-up to be productive and swap positions. I suppose that's quite a bold move, but yeah, like you say, he's kind of been used as the guy he's split out, the guy that can just sneak out at the backfield, as maybe I put him as a H-back and then he sneaks out, gets that first down. We'll find a role for him, I've no doubt. I can see the guy making the team.
I mean,
someone like Shane Zylstra, he might be competition to Shane, which I reckon has a potential receiving, tight end 3 or 4. So yeah, I think this move makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think James Mitchell and Shane Zylstra both could see competition from him. I mean, for Atlanta, he only played 48 snaps last year, but 646 snaps in 2022. So that's more than a bit part player, Ash.
Yeah, he is. And I was just looking up. He moved to tight end with the Titans when they signed him as the UDFA in 2019. So, but again, sounds familiar. Defensive lineman signed by the Titans. Yet again, Tyrell Williams maybe strikes again that we might have a bit of inside track there, because obviously he must have liked him coming out if they signed him as a UDFA at that time, and then obviously they've moved him to tight end. That would have been Arthur Smith. So fun with that. But there must be enough athleticism in that. They're decent pre-draft measurables from what I can see on his from his pro day. So yeah, could be Zylstra, James Mitchell competition. Definitely got the blocking with obviously being a former defensive lineman. He will know that. But decent catch as well. I'm looking at his PFL, nearly over 80% success rate on his catches. That's pretty damn good for even for a bit part player. So if there's something there, again, there's someone that I'm definitely going to be looking out for in preseason games, because Laporta probably won't be getting that much tread. Brock might, but it's mostly going to be Mitchell, Zylstra, and Hesse now having that sort of open competition / bloodbath that Holmes like to talk about.
All right. Next up is the defensive lineman. We've got TJ Smith and Josh Landry. TJ Smith out of Arkansas, Josh Landry out of Missouri. TJ Smith has been in the league for 3 seasons. He's been at Minnesota for all of them. He's played in 4 games with 11 tackles and a tackle for a loss in his professional career. With Arkansas, he redshirted in year 1, but then went all the way through to his redshirt senior year with 75 total tackles, 12 tackles for a loss, and 5 sacks with a forced fumble. Maybe not the most productive of college careers when you play 4 seasons, but he did play substantially more in the last 3 of his college career. Reasonable PFF grade, 72 as a college player. In terms of him in the league, he's only played 4 games, so God only knows really. But we needed some depth at that position. He's 6'3", 300 pounds, 55.8 PFF grade in his 2023 season. Boys, some more interior defensive line depth.
Local, been in the division. They've probably seen him before. I spoke to him on a game day, so they thought, why not? Let's give him a chance. Can you ever have too many defensive linemen? Probably not. If you're going to play a lot of 4-man fronts or extra, like you say, you need to stack up on the interior guys. And he's fairly well built. I imagine he's pretty strong. At 6'3", 300 pounds, pretty big man, is that?
Yep, and again, banging on about it because it's relevant at least here. This is a guy who in at least at Arkansas, played on some of the coverage teams as a sort of blocking guy. I'm now double checking to see if that's true in the NFL as well. But again, so he's played again. He's got some special team snaps when he's come up from practice squad for Minnesota. So again, this is just someone. Again, maybe we're given the chance because our defensive interior behind Reed and Aleem isn't, and I guess Wingo isn't the strongest. He could land a spot there, but then again, just giving us a chance to maybe experiment with body types in the special teams drills, see what works, see what doesn't, move from there.
Moving on then to Josh Landry, 6'3", 287 out of Missouri. He was a UDFA this season, the most recent year. He had 383 snaps and a PFF grade of 73.6. In his total college career, he played in 25, 29, 34, 35 games. First 3 with Baylor, second 2 with Missouri. He had 63 total tackles, 7.5 tackles for loss, and 1.5 sacks. Boys, that's not the most impressive resume. Yes, he's been in the Big 12 and SEC. Only really a big contributor in the last 2 seasons with Missouri trying to get some more game time. But, you know, for a guy who at that sort of weight you're going to be hoping is maybe a 3-5 technique, you'd want a little bit more production than just half a sack in that time and 4.5 tackles for a loss.
Yeah, he's going to be an unknown entity. Like I say, small, slender, like I say, lighter, so you'd expect him to be a bit more pass rush. Like I say, a bit faster. Like I say, it's not really a match to anything on paper. But I could say that about some of the guys that were drafted this year. Guys like Adisa Isaac, that from England did fuck all at Penn State for most of his time there. So, college numbers can be misleading. We'll see. It's probably a long shot to make the team, but why not?
Yeah, and it's the same again. Played a bit on special teams in Mizzou, for Mizzou. Probably, again, just giving them a chance there and letting us see how things work out. Best of both worlds kind of situation. If he lands here as a sort of, again, as a free tech, which is actually probably less likely than it would have been for if he was a bit heavy and could have played the one tech. Fair enough. Might be good for the practice squad, but there's probably better players out there already on the roster that would take up that practice squad spot for me.
All right, moving on to the linebackers. First, we have the linebacker Tyron Dupree from Liberty, who is a UDFA this year, 6'2", 215 pounds. He's a inside linebacker, played for Liberty his entire college career, racking up 1,915 snaps. 842 of those came in the most recent season in Liberty's first in the FBS. Yes, that's right, isn't it? No, were they? No, they moved to the CUSA. Sorry. There we go. Thank you. Apologies. So, really did kind of hit his stride as a starter in the most recent season, and it really showed. His highest PFF grade, 77.2, had 15 pressures in his most recent season, including 3 sacks, 85 tackles, one of his lowest missed tackles rate of his career with 13%. So he really stepped it up for Liberty, which is good to see. What else do we have here? 2 interceptions as well. So, you know, he is kind of racking up those stats in a solid year for Liberty. Boys, did you see anything from Tyron Dupree? Tyron Dupree.
I watched a little bit of football. The Flames have been very, very good since making the jump up. And he's played his career there. Then he's been coached by Hugh Freeze. Some big names in college football. So he's worked with some really good players. And yeah, the Flames were very good this year. So I think this could be one of the more sneaky guys, the guy that might actually be able to latch on to maybe the practice squad. Like I say, pounding the drum, special teams. Like I say, he's probably somewhere, like I say, his size and his weight and his ability to tackle, probably where he's going to make his money. And like I say, that should be his bread and butter. Like I say, on coverage and lining up on potential kickoff and return. So, yeah, he kind of be the guy, like I say, we've shown the likes of Mike Ford, Anthony Pittman, guys that can tackle reliably. We can keep you around a couple of years. So, yeah, very much in that mold. I can see him doing that well. So, yeah, he could be a guy that actually makes 53 if he shows that he can be a standout and can be reliable when covering kicks. So yeah, he has got a path to the roster if he wants it.
Yeah. So pretty much what I was going to say, except for I was going to go for another one who's a guy who's still here, Jalen Reeves-Maben. Guy who when he plays on defense, good overall, great in coverage. That's what Dupree was supposedly good at last year. Like he had very good coverage numbers, PFF grade and that. And then plays on special teams, and they're roughly the same body type. So Dupree's obviously 6'2", 215. JRM's a 6 foot 226. Do you put Dupree in an NFL weight room? Probably puts on a few pounds, probably gets to 230, 240, roughly what he should be for his height in the NFL. That could be a damn good special teams linebacker who, again, could come on for some dime backer looks because of his coverage skills. That's something we definitely need because JRM, I know we just signed him to his lovely new extension, all that. This could be the sort of succession plan if things go wrong there because we kind of saw what happened when JRM left. And then, yeah, he could work his way up to starting to some serious snaps on defense like JRM did. Perfect route into the roster.
The other linebacker is potentially could have gone in the previous categories. An outside linebacker, defensive end, 3-4 sort of guy. Out of Brad Holmes' alma mater, North Carolina A&T. He last played with them in 2019 because he's been in the league for 4 years now. He's bounced around a bit, was a draft pick actually in the 7th round to Buffalo in 2019, stayed there for 2 seasons. He played in 31 out of 32 regular season games and racked up 2 sacks, 29 tackles and 5 quarterback hits. So did fairly well as a rotational guy there. Moved on to Carolina for his age 24 season, only played in 3 games, and Seattle for his age 25 season, where he only played 4 games. And then he went to San Francisco last year, but did not play at all. 6'6", 250 pounds. So this is a big dude that we're talking about on the edge. Boys, it's hard to say whether you've seen him or not, really, given that his last meaningful time was really with Buffalo in 2020 when he played 15 games. But he has some time in the league. He keeps getting signed and keeps on rosters for entire seasons. So, this ain't no chump.
Yeah, he's got a bit of he's got some history to him. He's got big size. That's the same size as who did the Raiders draft? Tyree
Wilson.
Tyree Wilson, like I say, 6'6", 250, 260. That's like his build. Like I say, as a pass rusher. Like I say, Darius Robinson, like I say, is like, I know he's heavier, but like I say, 6'6". He's built like Miles Cole that was drafted out of Texas Tech this year. For a real guy. So 6'6", 250 is a really good build for a potential pass rusher. Like I say, it means he must have long arms. Like I say, he's got a nice, long, slender frame. And like I say, people keep signing him. Like I say, he's not making impacts in games. He's a rotational guy. He's always there. But if you stick around for 4 or 5 years, you're doing stuff right. In practice, you're doing what's asked of you. On the game days, you're asked to suit up and you're active because if something happens, you'll be needed. So, yeah, another guy that has got a way onto the team, or at least the practice squad, if he so chooses, if he wants to try and make another team. Like I say, still only 25. Like I say, that's not these days. So, yeah, like I say, he's got a bit of something about him to him. So, yeah, like I say, and pass rush is still something we need. It's still a question mark right now. So, it makes sense to bring a guy like this in that's got some actual experience.
Yeah, so he's actually 27, 4th of April, 1997. But you can guess where I'm going with this again. I'll give it 2 words. Special teams, because this is a guy in his 4 years he's played in the league, has not had a special teams grade lower than 71.6.
Nice.
This, in both his years in Buffalo, over 200, 290 snaps in each of his years, special team snaps in both his years in Buffalo, 74.1 in 2019, 71.6 in 2020, in lesser snaps for Carolina and Seattle, 73.4, 73.1. Again, this is a guy that can contribute special teams, and again, we keep saying that's awareness of his roster, especially with how weak that kind of, I'm going to say the Sam Roll, because roughly at that size is probably going to be like the Sam Roll speed rusher side of things. That's kind of where we're weak right now. We've thrown a lot of darts at that position. James Houston, Matthew Betts, Ukru, Mitchell Agude, now Darryl Johnson. We're seemingly throwing a lot of darts at that position and seeing if anything stick, which is kind of what we've been doing at other places as well, secondary and all that. But that's maybe when his leg up is over some of those later guys I mentioned. The fact he's got this vast special teams experience, he can stick around in the practice squad, elevate him when we need him, and then if in training in the weeks, if he shows anything in terms of the pass rush or run defense or anything, we can sign him up, and there's a decent sort of edge 5-6 maybe.
Yeah, definitely has a shot. There's a shot for someone at edge in this class, I'm sure there is. Moving on to the DBs, we've got Kyler McMichael, JJ Ross, and Harrison Hand at cornerback. So Kyler McMichael out of UNC, played at Clemson in 2018. Don't know what happened in 2019. Then played with UNC in 2020 and 2021 before coming out as a UDFA in 2022 without playing another snap. Was the starter of those 2 years at UNC. Had 2 pressures, 1 interception, 7 passes defended in 2 seasons. So not the most productive guy you ever see. Was important enough to have a RAS grade at that time from UNC. He had a 5.1. Obviously 6 foot, 201 pounds is pretty nice. And he ran a 4.49. But his 10-yard split was poor. His agility is mediocre and his explosion grade very poor. So this is a guy who has a bit of straight line long speed to him, but when it comes to the short area stuff, is perhaps not the most athletic you will ever see. Boys, he's never played a snap in the NFL since coming out in 2022. He's played, I think, with the Cardinals since coming out. But the tall guy who's got a little bit of experience in the league hanging around a team, I mean, that can't be a bad thing to have in camp.
So, yeah, I'm going to take your pick because I actually know what happened in 2019. In 2019, he transferred from Clemson to UNC, and back then you had to sit out a year.
Gotcha.
You had to sit out the entire 2019 season. But, yeah, this is a guy who was UDFA for Tampa in 2022, played a bit better in the preseason for them, about 85 snaps, good tackling grade, not much else, really. Let up a 50% completion rate, etc., etc. Then in Arizona the year after, less snaps, less good, like the tackling fell off, coverage fell off. Run defense went up a tiny bit, but again, missed 1 of his 5 tackle attempts then, gave up 5 of his 6 targets for a touchdown and that. Again, and that's basically it. It's just probably us again, just throwing a dart position, letting him try out because of the Cardinals connection, because maybe the UNC connection as well, with obviously Dre Blyer, former cornerbacks coach, being there a couple of years. It's just probably one of them where we're giving him a chance to maybe stick around for the roster. Might not have done enough, unfortunately, to stay around, because surprisingly, we've got a lot of dart throws in that secondary position, especially with the 2 guys we drafted. So maybe it's just too little too late for him.
Second one's JJ Ross from Western Illinois, who I think has got quite a bit of love actually recently. He's a UDFA this season, and he's a big boy, 6'3", 195 pounds. And he did something that no player should ever do without wanting to get a bit of flack, and I almost respect it. He played at Eastern Illinois 2019 to 2020 before transferring to Western Illinois in 2021 to 2023. He was a starter for all 3 seasons at Western Illinois. He has 2,169 snaps in his college career. His best season was last season, which is really encouraging to see. I have got the wrong player up for college stats, which is not ideal. Come on, JJ Ross, here we go. Let me just wait for the Leathernecks website to come up. In 2023 season, he was... He played in 11 games, 43 tackles, 3.5 tackles for a loss, interception, 3 pass breakups, and a forced fumble. In 2022, had 35 tackles, tackle for loss, 2 interceptions, and 6 pass breakups in 8 games. So a guy who has had some production at that sort of slightly lower level. Very fast, I think, if I remember rightly. I don't have any stats on him as to how fast he tested, but I seem to have it in the back of my head that he was the fast one that people were interested in. But at 6'3", boys, this is a A big lad at corner.
Can he play safety? Maybe.
You'd hope so.
I'd like to think, like, of all the names we're going to speak about, like, I think that's going to be the easiest way to make this team if you're able to rotate between. Because, like I say, 6'3", 190 pounds. He's 10 pounds off Miller Thornwell, like I say. So we've tried to play between corner and safety. So similar build, like I say, athletic profile. But yeah, he's got the things you can't teach. He's also got a bit of production. So if anyone's going to make it out of these defensive backs we're going to talk about, then he's probably got a chance, like I said, to get latched on a potential practice squad guy. So, like I say, I'm all for giving this kid a shot. Like I say, he might just need polishing and a bit of weight room.
I must have been thinking about someone else because I've just seen his pro day numbers. 4.68 in the 40-yard dash, but a 1.59 10-yard split is very, very good. So quick in the short areas and not so good long speed, which I guess would point again towards safety potentially.
Yep. And the reason you're probably thinking he's quick is because, again, this is someone that stood out to Riz at the rookie minicamp. This is a guy who jumped an out route from Isaiah Williams, who we'll get onto in a bit, as one of our UDFAs, and was over in a flash. But yeah, 6'3", 195, has played a bit of safety. I think last year for Western, it seems he played around about 135-ish snaps in the box, some experience in the box, mostly played at wide corner, played a couple of snaps at free safety, but also played a bit on special teams and even had 9 returns. Like, this is a guy who can do it all, a bit of everything. Again, might be something we can train up, like kind of as you said with Iffy, train him up a bit, get him on special teams when we do call him up. Could be like a safety 5, but like one of kind of like a poor man's Will Harris in a way. If we want to use that sort of invoke that name on this podcast again, where he can back up corner, he can back up safety, and you kind of know what you're getting out of him. This has kind of got the prototypical body for it. You just got to work on the technique and the talent now.
All right. One more corner, and then the safety, which we'll talk a little bit more about in depth. Ash, getting ready for that. Harrison Hand, though, we're talking about here, corner out of Temple, played 2 years at Baylor, 2017 and 2018, and then moved to Temple for his junior season, and then came out. So he came out as a senior, but didn't play a snap. Probably missed for the COVID year. So 720 snaps at Temple, 71.9 defensive grade there. He had in his college career 114 tackles across 31 games, 5.5 tackles for loss, 4 interceptions, 1 forced fumble, 16 passes defended. So a fairly productive college corner. 5'11", 197, 4'5", 40-yard dash, 156, 10-yard split, 41 vert, 11-1 broad. So explosive guy. The shuttles weren't fantastic. 47 and 715 are not great for a corner, but they're just about passable. So 5'11", not tall, but not too short that you can't go. 197 is very good, especially at that height. And then explosive guy. He's been in the league for a little while, and I think he's been with the Vikings, but I didn't actually bring up Harrison's stats.
He's doing a tour of the NFC North.
He is.
Yeah,
that's
basically is. Yeah.
Yes. So he
was a fifth round draft pick, so he's the one that's got the most pedigree of everyone we spoke about. To be fair, that's pretty high.
So he played with the Vikings for 2020 and 2021, 163 snaps in that first year, but only 2 in year 2 on defense. Went to Chicago, 111 snaps, including 61 in run defense, totaling a 94 grade in run defense on those 61 snaps. Now, very small sample size, I know, but there we go. What do you think, boys? I mean, 6 foot 192. He's only 25 years old.
So he's actually got an NFL interception in him. Got a forced fumble, I believe, as well, the Vikings. So I don't know. This could be sneaky. Is he the biggest? No. Is he the strongest? No. But is he good against the run? Well, the grade would say in a small sample size, he doesn't fear tackling. He's got a turnover in the NFL. Like I say, maybe he's just not landed in the right team and could crack their roster. I mean, to be fair, he'd have probably done a lot better coming here last year because the cornerback room is arguably a lot deeper this year, potentially. But this could be the guy that this could be the guy that, like you say, you bring in when you get an injury, or you call up on a roster game day. Like you say, he could be that kind of guy. He could be who's the guy from the Bears?
Kindle Vildor.
It could be a Kindle Vildor that you could call up mid-season because he's a free agent, and like you say, just bring him up and say, "Got some injuries. Do you want to come in?" And you just elevate him on a game day. I could see this kind of guy playing a game or two for the Lions. If we pick up a knock, you kind of just throw him in there, and he'll probably do a job for you. And he's probably got less upside than some of the other guys, but he's probably got a higher floor because of the fact he's actually got 3 years in the NFL.
Yeah, so I'm looking at a bit of his grades, particularly 2022, because that's the one he kind of, obviously he said he didn't play as many snaps, but he had 2 full games as a sort of starter-ish. So week 17 against us in 2022, where 80.7 grade, good in everything. His one target, which was against DJ Chark, he did not let up. He actually got PBU on. And then the next week against Minnesota, week 18, to close the season in his revenge game, 70 snaps, 64.7 grade, but a 95.1 grade run defense grade, with he missed admittedly one of his 10 tackle attempts, but he made a stop and got that forced fumble that Brian mentioned. So yeah, this is a guy who got a bit of NFL pedigree, been there, done that. Obviously, hasn't played for 2 of the best teams for secondary development in the division, with Minnesota, who are infamous for throwing darts at cornerbacks and then ruining their careers. And then Chicago, who are a tire fire and probably will be for the next couple of years in terms of that. So could come here and get some really good coaching and turn out to be something you said with like Kindle Vildor. But if not, someone that's perhaps good enough to be, again, a vet guy in the practice squad you keep around. And yeah, if we need him, then you call him up because you can get decent level play out of him. He's never going to be your sort of big starter, but if you need him for a game or two, he can do it for you.
Moving on to the final guy of the tryout players, the safety Ao Oyalola from the University of Nottingham in the UK. Played with the Jacksonville Jaguars last year after coming through the International Player Pathway Program. Ash, you know him personally, I believe. I'm not overselling that. So tell us a little bit about Ao.
So I do know him personally. He's the same age as me. He was in my uni class. I went up against him in rookie tryouts for the green and gold. And it didn't go well for me at receiver. Let's put it that way. Let's really put it that way. Like, admittedly, university books, football, not the greatest. You're not going to be wowed. People who watched this year's Bucks National Championship and saw that muffed punt, that was posted on Reddit, CFB, I mean, you know what I'm talking about. Also, fun story. I know the guy who's the special teams coach for the Trent team, and I did wind him up about that. But Ao is a really good guy, kind of quiet from what I remember then, and what I know from the people I spoke to who played with him on our team. But a really good, strong safety, and it proved in the league, coming up against way better kind of people than he went up against over here, posting tackling grades at not below 74.9, posting decentish run defense, not below 60, coverage lacking a bit. His one pass rush, which was actually against us last year in week 2, also didn't really do much. But this is a guy who's very damn good box safety and could have been a decent backup to Iffy if you train him up right. And it could have been. I'm hoping he just sticks somewhere because he did damn well in the Jacksonville in the pre-seasons. He probably will land in the practice squad again. But yeah, I would, if we signed him, I would have loved it because he had a real chance of making 53, in my opinion, as that sort of strong safety 2 behind Iffy. You can play in the box, do blitzing if you need him to, but for the most part, he's there just to attack the run. He would have been great for that.
Ryan, don't know if you saw any of him.
Oh, I know. Yeah, I know a lot about him. Like say, Coach Scott, not goal coach. He's the Great Britain head coach. Like I say, so we got a lot of recognition in the national program for the GB Lions in the late teens, early 20s. That earned him, like say, playing excellent linebacker, earned him a CFL Combine invitation where he went and lit that up. He was taken with the 22nd overall pick in the CFL Global Draft by the Winnipeg Blue Bombers. Spent a year one there. Technically won a Grey Cup. I believe the Winnipeg Blue won that in 2021. So I don't know if he got a ring or not, if he qualified, but yeah, he was drafted by them. Like I say, he was playing linebacker then. Like I said, NFL pathway, given number 35 by the Jags, moved to safety. More natural position for him at 5'11", 190. He's good in coverage, like I say, he's strong. And yeah, like I say, he learned a lot there. Like I say, he featured at points last year, and he will probably get more tryouts. Like I say, he will probably be picked up by someone again this year. I think there's still a player there. He's still young. He's risen through the ranks very quickly. And he's probably one of the highest or one of the biggest prospects that the UK has announced the last couple of years. He didn't even get to play in Europe. Like I say, he went straight from like BUCS American football straight to the CFL Combine. He didn't even go play in the GFL, didn't even play abroad. Like, he just shot the rankings. They just recognized him straight away as an elite talent. And that's really hard to do, to go straight from one continent to another. But yeah, I'd love to land him on the practice squad. I'd love to bring him in this year and see what he can do. Like I say, so he's someone that's got a good build, competitive. Like I say, he's had an interesting route to get here. Like I say, he's played in 3 different countries, freedom systems, different types of sport. Yeah, like I say, I hope someone picks him up. Like I say, because the Jags, like I say, they must have learned a lot of time there. So yeah, I'm still holding out hope as well that we'll get a British guy on the team.
All right, that brings us to the end of our tryout players. I know, Rye, that you're needing to cover from about 9ish. So I just want to throw it to you to maybe talk a little bit either about day one of camp, because that's all we know about from the media guys. That's the only portion of it which was open. Or maybe any of the UDFAs that you want to speak a little bit more about on before you go, just so we don't miss any of your highlights from the guys. Just to mention all of those guys that we have got as UDFAs to kind of tee you up and set the scene. We've got 3 centres in Brian Hudson from Louisville, Duke Clemens from UCLA, and Kingsley Eguacan from Florida. 2 wide receivers in Isaiah Williams from Illinois and Jalon Calhoun from Duke. Tight end Isaac Rex from BYU. Defensive end Isaac Ukwu from Ole Miss and Nate Lynn from William & Mary. Linebacker Steel Chambers from Ohio State. Linebacker safety Deron Gilbert from Northern Illinois. Cornerback Maurice Norris from Fresno State. Defensive back Lawrence Strickland from Ball State. Safety Chelling Garnes from Wake Forest. Long snapper Hogan Hatton from Idaho, and kicker James Turner from Michigan. So any thoughts from Rookie Minicamp, or any thoughts on those guys, Ryan?
So for me, I think Steel Chambers. Now, he wasn't a huge name at the Buckeyes, like I say, but at 6'1", like I say, 185 meters, like I say, 200, 210, he can put on a bit of muscle. He's a hybrid, like I say. He can play a linebacker, like I say, he's a linebacker. He can also play some strong safety. He had 4 interceptions his time in the Buckeyes. Like I say, and he was a key piece on special teams. Like I say, he is a very good tackler, despite being a bit slender. I think he's someone that will stand out in this UDFA group, and someone that will add a mix. And I can see him being one of the only guys of a handful that actually makes the team. Like I say, he has got good coverage recognition, traveling, like I say, across those shallow routes across the middle. He's able to diagnose them. He's able to track guys across the field. Like I say, guys that come out of the slot or the backfield, he can mirror them. He can do those shallow crosses, and he can come underneath, and he can jump routes. So he's got some instincts when it comes to the ball. And he does not shy away from tackles. Like I said, he will come down, and he'll come down fast. Like I said, don't always take the best angles, can be a bit sloppy, but it was part of a great team. Played with guys like Jack Sawyer and Tommy Eichenberg. Like I said, he was learning from some of the best in the nation how to play that thumper, that inside linebacker role. Like I said, Marshall, middle of the field. I think he'll be a name to watch. And I think he'll see a lot of snaps in preseason if he gets that far. If someone could join that rotation, because I think in the next year or two, our linebacker room is going to go through a transition. Like at some point, we won't have Alex. Like I say, how long will Malcolm be here? Like I say, we don't know. Like I say, Derek, there's questions, like you say. So we do need to throw some young blood into there. Special teams, I'm being able to come in on those, like I said, primarily rundowns, but also can then be like a versatile chess piece that you move around. He just needs to bulk up a little bit more experience. He's already 23. So he's one of the older guys as well. He's very experienced, 4 years there. A lot of people will know him very well, and he'll play against Michigan many times. A lot of people have seen him on the field. I think he's a guy that could fly under the radar and could find himself well up being called upon at some point this year. If not elevated on a game day or catches on a practice squad, I think if he does do well, I think he will be a Lion for most, if not the whole season. He'll be someone watched going forward.
And just if I ask you to perhaps put your best guess out there, how many of these guys make the 53? How many make the practice squad?
I think three will make the 53. I think one of them will be a centre. I think Isaac Rex is basically just going to be a walk-on. He will be able to compete with our tight end room for me straight away. One of the best UDFA tight ends in the country. Like I say, he can come in and do what some of our guys have been doing. He's been doing it quite a long time. And I think Steele's got a chance. Like I say, Isaiah Williams, I like him. He's got a lot of guaranteed money, but he just feels like he's going to be a stash. And protect him, don't protect him. But I can see, like, say, 4 or 5 of these making the practice squad. One of the centres definitely will. Isaiah Williams definitely will. And, like I say, some of the potential defensive backs.
All right. There we go. Fair. All right. Cheers, Ryan, for coming on and giving your thoughts, especially on the lesser heralded guy, the lesser heralded of the lesser heralded, because we've gone through the tryout guys and not the UDFAs. But appreciate you being on, and we'll see you soon, man.
Yeah, see you in a bit, guys. Good year.
All right. Ash, I know that we didn't ask the question. I didn't want to ask that question. That was just a troll. And I love Ant, but that was mean. Okay. So we now need to go through the UDFAs if I can actually sort out my blooming screen. Sorry, guys. One second. There we go. All right. Here we go. We're going to start in the order in which I gave players. Have you seen everyone?
I have seen most. The only one I haven't seen yet proper. Well, there's 2 I haven't. It's Maurice Norris and Lauren Strickland. I've seen a bit of everyone else.
I haven't seen any of Hogan Hatton and James Turner just because I don't hate myself that much. But there we go.
And you knew I would as well.
Well, yeah. I mean, you know. Okay. So we're going to start with Brian Hudson from Louisville. Now, he has an 8.95 RAS score. He's just a shade under 6'5" and 300 pounds. Got a 5.26 40-yard dash. Only a 1.85 10-yard split, but somehow posts a 2.95 20-yard split, which is insane. Like, he goes from one of the slower 10-yard split guys to one of the faster 20-yard split guys. So he really can accelerate in that mid-range, which is an absolutely useless trait for a centre, but never mind. Great agility, a 4.53 shuttle and a 7.463 cone is very handy at the centre position. And then a 29-inch vert and the 9'5" broad jump, which are excellent grades as well, or great grades, excellent grades, whatever. Thanks to Silver Rush for subscribing at Tier 1 for their 9th month. Appreciate you very much. So, Brian Hudson, PFF grade last year with Louisville was a 71.5 with a 77.5 on pass block, 68.6 run block. His run blocking was better in 2022. Ash, I watched did you watch all of the games that I suggested on YouTube, or did we watch different games?
Different ones.
Okay,
I watched a particular game in particular that Louisville played this year.
Florida State.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so
game.
What do you think of him as a prospect?
So admittedly, again, I watched the ACC championship game for him because that's one that I know the place is going up against really damn well, because obviously they're my players. So he went up mostly against Braden Fisk, who obviously the Rams traded up to tour in the 2nd round this year. And he also went up against Fabian Lovett, who is a damn good defensive tackle as well. Actually held his own against him in pass protection quite well. It was more the run game where he fell down. So I know PFF having marked down to 78.8 pass block and then 54.3 in run blocking. It's that run blocking though was kind of let down by the fact I think he got a holding. He got 2 penalties against him. One of them was declined. I think one would, if I remember rightly, one was a hold against Fisk where Fisk just beat him. But anyway, great pass blocker. needs a bit of work on the on terms of his run blocking from what I saw in that game. And with what Riz said in his little scouts notebook from it as well, it seems maybe the Lions don't view him as a centre. I suppose he's been playing mostly at guard for us at the rookie minicamp, which again, we kind of need. It's one the same with the other, especially with how we need our offensive linemen, tier ones, to play. Look at Graham. We need people that can do a bit of everything. So I kind of like him. Like, if he sticks around, obviously he hasn't been signed officially yet, but if he does stick around, I can see a path to him because he offers quite good pass blocking, as I say. Run blocking needs a bit of work, but who better to learn from than one of the best run mauling, two of the best run mauling defensive linemen in the league in Frank Ragnow and Kevin Zeitler. Like, great people for him to learn under.
I think so. Duke Clemens as well also played at guard. We'll come on to him in a minute. I don't think the Lions see him at guard. I think what they're doing is they're just cross-training all of the lower guys because that's what they're going to have to do. So Egwakun played centre in day one. I wouldn't be surprised to hear they all flipped around in all positions in the interior just to try and get them a bit of experience in all of them and see how they did. I don't think that that's indicative of them thinking Hudson's a guard necessarily, really. Sure. But yeah, so I watched a Kentucky game from 2023. Seemed like a really kind of consistent snapper of the ball, which is something when you hear about what happened to Egwakun in day one of camp, really struggling to snap the ball under center, apparently, Egwakun. So, Hudson being a pretty consistent snapper is, not to be overlooked at the center position, really. You got one job. Has a really good get off the line. I know that his 10-yard split time is poor, but he's explosive, and you can really see that. His feet seem a bit awkward and imprecise, so like he knows he's running, but sometimes it doesn't really feel like it's all in a straight line, and sometimes he's not actually hitting the right spot to get to his block. So while he's athletic, I think really he just needs a little bit of training, a little bit of coaching in terms of his running technique. Which seems a bit weird to be coached to run, but it's just not quite there. Seems to know his assignments, though, and he's quite good at getting to multiple blocks, so kind of chipping one guy before getting to the second level. And I mean, the Louisville scheme is a lot of gap scheme stuff, so a lot of what you see on tape with Louisville is stuff which is going to translate to the Lions scheme really well, which I think is going to give him a bit of step up over the other two guys that he has to go up against. Does well diagnosing blitzes, multiple examples of Kentucky bringing several people and him managing to take the right one while his partner then takes the other one. So, the decisions weren't always easy, and he seems to be consistent at getting that right. He's a pretty good run blocker, but, can improve there, as we talked about. And he seems to not be able to stay on his block in pass blocking for as long as he might like. So even when he wins with a first effort, he can get out leveraged quite quickly in that second effort. So if someone's got a good counter, he might fall foul to that. And there was one instance in this game where his initial punch had pretty much no effect whatsoever on the interior defensive lineman, which caused a quarterback hit and almost an interception. So, sometimes you'd like to see that initial hit get a bit more impact, especially when the second effort he's losing quite quickly sometimes. So this is someone overall that I think has got a reasonably good shot at making the 53, basically because of a scheme-related thing. When you're a backup, you want someone to translate pretty quickly. With Frank's injury, he might be needed day one. So can he come in straight away and give you something relatively consistent? The snapping ability and the run scheme stuff makes me think this might be maybe the most likely guy to make it, although he's not my favourite centre so far. Any comeback on that before, or should we move on?
No, yeah, I pretty much agree. As I said, I've only really watched the FSU game, and maybe that's not fair to him because he was coming up against perhaps the best defensive line he faced all season. So maybe I'll see like his worst game. You've seen one of his best, and it's kind of we can aggregate in the middle. But as I say, he's actually my favourite of the three that I've seen. So maybe that's ACC bias, but if he's the one that sticks around, I'm very happy. Like, he could be an upgrade on a Rosh Pierschbacher, he used to have to count on it backup centre after Graham. So anything's better than that.
Moving on to Duke Clemens from UCLA, starter at UCLA for the last 5 seasons. He's 6'3" and 302 pounds. Ran a 5'1" 40-yard dash, which is really strong. In fact, he's strong in all of his speed traits. So 1.77 10-yard split and 2.9 20-yard split. So strong across the board there. He's a fast cookie. Also has a good agility grade with a 4.7 shuttle and a 7.663 cone, and a 29-inch vert and an 8'1" broad. Not blowing you away with those explosion and agility grades, but good enough and very, very quick. Very short arms, though, 31-inch arms and only 9.25-inch hands. So, not the biggest wingspan in the world. PFF grade last season, 76.8 overall. Pass blocking grade, 81.8. Run blocking grade, 74.9. It's higher across the board compared to Brian Hudson, who we just talked about. It's a significant uptick in PFF grade in 2022 in a breakout season and stayed consistent into 2023. What do you think of Duke Clemens?
So again, someone I found a bit of a better pass protector than he was run blocker. So I watched the Oregon State game, which according to PFF is his best one. So 82.5 overall, 81.6 pass block, 77.4 run blocking. And for me, yeah, he was one of them where I was watching him and it was kind of, I wasn't really giving him anything like a massive plus, like he wasn't getting any like double plus sort of moments. We also didn't really have any double negative moments. It was kind of pretty steady and average, which isn't the worst thing. Like if you're not really noticing, you're not really marking him down for anything, you're not really marking him up for anything, I'm okay with that. Like especially if he's going to be the backup center, you don't want someone that's going to be one play you're getting a pancake block, the next one he's giving up a massive sack that leads to a forced fumble on Goff. You want someone that can just steady the ship with Frank being out, rely on the other vets to sort of step up. So yeah, if again he's the guy that sticks around, he's not my favorite. He's my second favorite out of the three. But if he's the guy that sticks around, nice consistent backup center, can play a bit of guard. I think he's done it before in his career. So again, that interior versatility that we seem to favor. Won't be the flashiest guy, but if you need him to start a game or two at a guard spot or center, you're not really gonna hopefully miss too much of a step. He's obviously not Frank Ragnow. He's not going to be Zeitler. He's not going to be Glasgow, but he's 85% of the guards, 75% of Frank, which is good enough to be passable in the league. So never going to blow you away, but it's going to be a steady Eddie that you can rely on if you need to.
So this is my favourite of the three. And I think it was basically what you said. On tape, I watched the Utah game, 70.3 grade in that, so a pretty good game for him. And there was nothing remarkable. And for me, it's like cornerback. Like, if your center is kind of fairly anonymous and he's not making big mistakes, that's a massive plus for me. Like, I just love that. Again, another consistent snapper. It seemed really explosive off the line. Like, his explosion grades of 7.35 and 7.83. So while I said good, that's pretty consistently up there. And then those speed times, like, he is fast, and so the agility grades mean he's no mug. The problem with UCLA is the majority of their scheme is zone blocking, and they're kind of just putting him out there at center and just telling him to block whoever comes. And I think that's a waste of his potential athletic talent. So while he was good in both pass blocking and run blocking, I kind of think that there's some untapped potential here. And I mean, the only note I had really is that sometimes he had a bit of a questionable anchor in pass blocking, but had the ability to reset when knocked back. There was one way he almost jumped back a full couple of feet, but managed to get back up in there. So that was, good recoverability. I think in Clemens, you've got someone who can just be that consistent backup that you can rely on with upside. And that's what gives me confidence that he can be the guy to win this fight of the three. Moving on to Kingsley Aguakun, many people's kind of underrated day three darling at the center and guard positions out of Florida. He was a backup in 19 and 20 and then started in 21 through 23, but was injured for the majority of 2023. Overall, he had a 60.4 grade with a 61.3 pass blocking grade and a 65.9 run blocking grade. He is a penalty machine with 12 flags in 2021 and 14 in 2022. He missed a large part of the 2023 season with a persistent ankle issue sustained in training camp. I think he played in 4 games, but none in consecutive weeks. He was like in and out again. Super frustrating. So I actually went back and watched some tape from 2022 for him, which was a better season. Ash, what do you make of Aguakun, especially with the kind of struggles which we hear that he might have had during... I didn't go even to his measurables. Hang on 1 second. 6'3", 304, so a little bit smaller than the other guys, but not a huge amount. 304, about the same weight. He was ranked as a guard by Raz, not really sure why. Explosion grade, 32 on the vert, 9'1" broad, so very explosive. 451 shuttle, 757 3-cone drill, so very agile, very explosive, about the same height weight. Didn't do the 40-yard dash. I'm presuming that's because of his ankle situation, and he didn't want to put that at any sort of risk during combine. He's explosive and agile enough that I don't really think that matters. It looked like he was a pretty athletic guy. Ash, what do you make of him?
So, I'm trying to... Yeah, you've seen it. I'm trying to remove the garnets and gold glasses here, even though that's the game I watched of his in 2022, because obviously, as you said, injured in 2023, so it seemed unfair to maybe watch that. Wasn't the best game for him. He gave up two pressures and obviously had a penalty on him. It just wasn't a good game. Like, he has flashy moments, so I know you've watched the Tennessee game, he's coming to a minute, and that's one of his better of that season, other than the Utah one that I think quite a lot of people watched that in that week one. Yeah, this was the one where I was seeing a lot of those sort of like double negatives. Like, he did make a couple of good plays in the run game, especially against our former nose tackle who sort of aged out and went into the draft and wasn't picked. Had a couple of good plays against him, but for the moment, it was kind of, there was a lot more negatives, and that's not what I'm looking for. I'm like you, I want that sort of, if you're noticing for negative things, that's really damn bad. Like, you can live with, yeah, okay, maybe give it like slight misstep, giving up a QB hit, but when there is some really big misses and obviously you're being a penalty machine, that's just not for me on the offensive line, especially with where we are, where it's the strength of our team. Let's keep it strong. So yeah, I'm not trying to say this because he's a Gator. It's just I saw the most negatives from him, so he's the one I'm least excited about.
Yeah, he's my number 3 as well. I mean, you can't watch every snap, and in some form or fashion, the PFF grades indicate something. I'm not going to say they're the be-all and end-all, because as we know, they're not. I watched the Tennessee game in 2022. He had Anthony Richardson behind him in that year. So Florida, good team that year. You know, they weren't setting the world alight, but they were no mugs. And Richardson, you know, went very high in that draft. That was an RPO-based offense in shotgun, which means that he didn't have a huge amount of experience snapping the ball on the center. That might be why he's had the problems in camp snapping the ball on the center. The snaps in shotgun seem to be fine. Super eager to get upfield. I mean, like, he's almost falling forwards when he's snapping the ball to try and get upfield as quickly as possible. Plays with good pad level, especially, getting really low in pass blocking. Anchor is absolutely no problem there. So aggressive in run blocking, and this is where the flags come in, I think. So aggressive in run blocking that he can't help but just be a little bit grabby. Like, if someone just beats him, it's going to be an automatic flag. He needs to show some restraint, I think, because he wants to dominate so much. It reminds me of watching Logan Stenberg when he came out. It's a similar sort of guy to me. At one point in this game, there was an oncoming rusher who timed the snap really, really well and absolutely destroyed him. Like, he looked stupid, which was not great, but, you know, there we go. This is a guy with the athletic kind of traits where you really think that the ceiling is very high, and I can see that's why people like him. But at the end of the day, I'm talking about Clemens as a guy who's got untapped potential because he's athletic, but he's already shown production at a high level, at the college level, whereas Aguakun has never snapped the ball under center. Goff does a bit of both, but actually has really developed his under center play recently. He was always going to be a shotgun guy, being a spread offense guy in college, Goff, but Goff has done a lot more under center stuff and a lot more play action stuff, and Aguakun's going to need to improve that, and that's not something that just happens overnight. And, you know, like, for all the athletics traits you have, why haven't you sorted out your flag problem yet? And why are you quite so aggressive like you are? Because sometimes it's great, but it's just too much. Like, you're taking Mr. Nasty to a new level, and I kind of don't like it. So, there we go. He's my number 3. Hudson's my number 2, Clemens is my number 1. I think Clemens is going to make the 53. There are some people who are saying we'll just elevate him for the first few games and then maybe sign him to, or sign whichever centre makes it to the practice squad to the main roster after 3 elevations. I can see that as well. But let's say in some form or fashion, I can see a centre making the main roster by the middle of the year because they've run out of elevations. Yeah. All right, we'll move on to the wide receivers. First off with the much vaunted Isaiah Williams out of Illinois, 5'9", 182 pounds. Got 17 on the bench, which is very strong for a wide receiver. Ran a 4.63 in the 40-yard dash. I know that he was super disappointed with that. 1.6 10-yard split is better, though. The long speed just isn't there. Despite being disappointed by his long speed, even though he could have done maybe better than that, he's not a long speed guy. Don't look for that. He's a short area quickness guy. Shuttle was 4.13. 3-cone 6.75 is exceptionally good. And then explosion grades 38 in the vert, 10'3" in the broad. So very explosive, very agile, strong guy, short. Small hands, 9" and an eighth, an arm length of 30 and an 1/8 inch as well. So small wingspan, small guy, but agile in that slot position. As a backup for Illinois in 19 and 20, and a starter in 21 to 23. In 2023, per PFF, he had an overall grade of 79.9 with 80.9 in the pass, only 54.5 in the run blocking though, which, given his bench stats and his agility grades and his explosion grades, even though he's only 182 and 5'9", I was kind of hoping for more than that. Never mind. Former quarterback turned slot wide receiver. In 2023 had 82 receptions for 1,055 yards and 5 touchdowns. Ash, what do you make of Isaiah Williams? He's obviously been given the most in guarantees of this entire class.
Yeah, so out of the ones, as much as I'll have another guy that will come into in a minute, but you know, because you saw my reaction when we signed him, Williams has a real good chance of making this roster. Like, he's a damn good slot receiver. Like, I know technically we don't need it because we've got Amon-Ra, we've got Khalif, we've got all these guys who can play that role. He's just really damn good. Like, his former receiver, so he understands how route concepts work and all that. And okay, admittedly, I didn't watch his best game of the season according to PFF, so I watched his game against Penn State on Caddy's cut-ups, just so it's nice and condensed for me. But unlike what I saw, understands how to, as I say, how those route concepts work, sets up stuff against zone in particular was what I saw, at least how I saw it in my eyes. Yeah, the pass, some of the blocking needs work, but that's something we can work on. We can put pounds on his frame because he's 5'10", 180, not the biggest guy, despite being a former QB turned slot receiver as well, which Illinois seems to do a lot because that's where FSU got their guy who's similar, Juice Span. Seems to be something they love to do, maybe because of that understanding of route concepts and that. I actually really like him, and I know he might be a practice squadder this year, but as things go on, if there's injury in the receiver room, for example, this year, or as we start to need more youth in that receiver room, he's someone that I could actually see being a contributor on at least an NFL team in the next couple of years as a wide receiver 4 kind of guy, be it here or another team manages to snatch him up who needs receivers, like Atlanta, for example. I know they love their big guys, but they need someone who's a separator, that kind of thing. He's really damn good, basically, is what I'm saying. And it might be there's one of those, like as Riz said, we're seemingly winning the UDFA receiver market with him right now, and it turns out he won't do anything and he'll go to the UFL. But right now, from at least what I've seen and what I've heard out of camp, this is a damn good guy.
This is such a hard one because he is the best of the wide receivers at Rookie Minicamp who, you know, are the tryout guys or the UDFA guys. There's absolutely no doubt about that in my mind. But because of his weight and size, he's playing in the strongest position in the wide receiver group that we have on the roster. Like, Amon-Ra Brown plays about 50% of the snaps in the slot, but actually, long term, if we do want to perhaps get the best out of him, that's going to translate more into the slot, and we'll actually maybe next year draft a guy to play outside which means that the amount of snaps in the slot is going to be limited. Don't forget, of course, that Sam Laporta is going to play there sometimes because Brock Wright was getting enough money that we'd actually like to play him quite a bit too. And, you know, God forbid, James Mitchell and Shane Zylstra might want to see some time at tight end, which will push Sam out as well. Never mind the fact that we've paid Khalif Raymond to be a wide receiver 3. Never mind the fact that people want Donovan Peoples-Jones to play, which might push Amon-Ra in the slot, or Antoine Green to get on the field. It feels like he's in maybe the hardest battle of all of the guys that people are hoping are going to make it. You know, Tom Kennedy is someone who's hung around for ages, and I know that people will laugh when I bring his name up, but when you have a look at what Isaiah Williams does and what Tom Kennedy does, they're remarkably similar. Like, small guys, consistent catches, agile in short areas, make people miss. I expect Isaiah Williams to be an absolute warrior in preseason. And I mean, I watched the Kansas game. He's often the guy used in motion. They get him the ball a lot in screens. He's got great hands. I mean, they rely on him a lot in high leverage situations, good concentration. I really think he's going to struggle against press, but he wasn't facing that. You don't see a lot of press at college in general. But I mean, if a nickelback comes up and presses him, it's going to be interesting to see who wins that. He's a strong guy, 17 on the bench, and he's explosive. But if he comes up against a guy 10 pounds heavier than him, it's going to be tough. And you're up in the NFL now, man. That's not something he's going to win easily. And I mean, one thing that people are going to love is that he's a very, very willing blocker downfield. I mean, he plays much bigger than he is. That bench reps, you can see that come into play on tape. Is a really good route runner too. Nice feet, really good change of direction. I really like him as a player, and I don't think he'll be on the 53. Like someone mentioned with Dylan Drummond last year. I think it was you actually, Ash, in Discord that mentioned Dylan Drummond. But like Tom Kennedy, like Maurice Alexander, there are all of these guys who have like upside, and in a game or two, you really think that they could show something. But I'll just say, I think he'll look great, and I don't think he'll make it.
That's fair.
Moving on to the other wide receiver, which is Jalon Calhoun from Duke. 2.67 RAS score, so not the most athletic guy you're going to see. 5 foot, just a shade under 5'10", 186 pounds, 11 on the bench, 4.64 40-yard dash. Not great, but a 1.58 10-yard split is not too bad. Very poor agility grade. 4.47 shuttle, 7.44 3-cone. I mean, those are times for a shuttle and 3-cone that would be great if you were an offensive lineman at 300 pounds. Oops, if you're 186 pounds and 5'10". 34 inches on the vert. 10 foot broad, which isn't too bad. At Duke in 2023, 66.5 overall grade, 67.9 pass, 57.1 run block. Has slightly better years in 2022 and 2021. 2023 was a kind of down year for him. Despite it being a down year, he still racked up 50 receptions for 666 yards and 4 touchdowns. What do you make of Calhoun?
So this is the guy I mentioned. Initially, I liked a lot better because, again, Duke, watched them quite a lot, them being the ACC. We're literally, I can kind of recount the story. Me and Matt had just had pizza after day 3. We come out and I see, we've signed Jalen Calhoun. That's a guy I know and I really like, because he is what I imagine myself to be as a receiver in the NFL. Like, I'm the same kind of build, but he plays bigger than he is. He's very small, but he plays with that kind of X mentality in a slot body. Like, he's kind of, I know he's small, but he's a willing blocker. He's good at those sort of like third down catches we've seen from Amon-Ra time and time again. At least what I saw in Clemson and through my time watching him the past couple of years at Duke. He's very good at those sort of possession kind of catches. It's just everything else. Like, the stuff he should be good at his body size, he just doesn't have because of that lack of athleticism. So, yeah, he's like me. All the willingness in the world, none of the talent, unfortunately.
Yeah, it's weird. Like you kind of said, he's stout for his height. Like, he's a strong guy, and at just under 5'10", you don't really expect it. And he releases really smoothly off the line. Like, despite him having a really bad long speed, the short area is not too bad in terms of the 10-yard split. And I mean, even though his shuttle was bad, I thought his cuts had really good sharpness to them, which really belies the grades he had. Willing blocker, ferocious, in fact, one of my comments was, really enthusiastic at it. Got good awareness of the sticks. He runs routes where they're meant to be run. If you've got to get 6 yards, he's going to run 6.5 just to get there and give a little bit. Good hands, clutch catcher. I mean, several times on the broadcast, I watched the UNC game. They referred to him as a kind of like high leverage third down guy that they go to get the yards, and that showed up. But just unremarkable. Just a bit meh, really.
Yeah.
I don't think we're talking about someone who's on the same level as Williams, and I don't see him working in the slot. He's not strong enough, but I'm not going to see him working outside. He's not tall enough. So he's kind of nowhere. He's not... Can he play running back? Maybe. I would be maybe looking at that, but his agility grade's just not good enough for that either. He's kind of just falling between the gaps of various positions for me, where he doesn't really naturally have a home. Yeah. All right. Let's move on to a lot of people's favourite UDFA in this class, which is Isaac Rex, tight end out of BYU, Brigham Young University. 2.44 RAS, and some people are going to say, oh, wow, that's out of character for the Lions, and maybe it is, but he is a beast. 6'5", over 6'5", 247 pounds, so a little light for his height, but he's strong with a bench of 24 reps. 4.94 40-yard dash is slow. 1.75 10-yard split is slow. A 5-second shuttle is one of the worst shuttles in NFL Combine history at the tight end position. Not Combine history, you wouldn't go to Combine, I don't think, sorry, but 0.15 on the RAS scale is very, very bad. 7.353 cone, also not that great, didn't do a broad jump. 27-inch vert is 0.76. So you are talking about one of the least agile, least explosive, slowest tight ends we've seen in some time. I'm teeing him up so well. PFF had him as a 61.5 overall grade last season, 64.2 pass grade, 59. Why have I put the pass grade in? He didn't pass the ball. 59 pass blocking grade, 55.4 run blocking grade. He actually gradually gotten worse since he became the starter at BYU. I think his freshman year was his best year, or his redshirt freshman year was his best year, which is a bit worrying. He got 34 receptions last year for 422 yards and 3 touchdowns. I've made him look fantastic, Ash. And what do you think of Isaac Rex?
Surprisingly, I actually might give a good review of him, but that's because the caddy stuff I watched of him was from 2020. So I watched the game against LA Tech, which was actually a pretty decent game for him. Like, we're talking, let me just get the actual stats up so I can relate to you what he caught, because that would be useful, wouldn't it? So he did. Yep, so LA Tech, 2 targets, 2 catches for 18 yards. Fortunately, didn't score, but he showed reliable hands. Obviously, making 2 catches. The blocking, it's good, but it's kind of I got a bit of James Mitchell vibes from him, especially in run blocking. Like him coming out a couple of years ago when I watched his tape. There's stuff there. He's very willing with it, but especially surprisingly in the run game, there was just a few things that just meant he wasn't doing great. In pass blocking in that game, he's actually good, like 71.7 pass block. That's pretty damn good. But yeah, I know Ryan loves him to pieces, but for me, he's not going to make it over Brock Wright. He's not going to make it over James Mitchell. He's not going to make it over Shane Silstra, because for me, you know a lot more what you're getting out of them. And as you alluded to earlier, the fact that as he's got more and more involved in the offense, he's become less and less productive, less and less good in terms of PFF grades and that. It just seems if you use him sparingly, he might be good, but as soon as you start giving him some kind of workload, it's just too much for him, and he kind of almost breaks down. And that's what you need when NFL season is going to be longer than the college one. You're going up against a lot more better athletes. That's not good English. You're coming up against better athletes, the 1% of the 1%. And I don't know if he's going to make it, to be honest.
Interesting. Okay, so I watched the Texas Tech game from this year, and I really like him. Really, really like him. Very fluid running. Like I said, not the fastest. Really seems to enjoy blocking. Plays much bigger than his weight. I mean, even at 247 pounds, I don't think he needs to put anything on to be a inline blocker. Seems absolutely fine to me. Great hands catching the ball. There's a trick play that they ran where he does an amazing sell on it. I mean, the nuance to be able to actually do it was fantastic. Goes to block, gets down low, leverages up high, and then explodes out of that stance almost like a sprinter and gets free for a really big gain. He's so smooth turning with the ball in hand. I mean, think the opposite of TJ Hawkinson, right? Like, he's catching the ball facing the quarterback and he's able to turn on a dime and get upfield for another couple of steps. Like, it ain't much, but he's getting 2 yards a yak on almost every single play. Got a fairly varied route tree as well. Runs hitches, wheels, crosses, slants. Like, he just did a bit of everything. Very adept at chipping in line before getting out to his routes, although it often means his routes are late to develop. Often is also the man pulling for BYU, so he's lining up on the left-hand side of the line and he's pulling to block on the right-hand side, and he looked like he did that very, very well. So I kind of think he's quite well developed in terms of his route tree. He's had to pull a lot on the offensive line, which means he has to know a lot of what's going on. He's not just blocking the man in front of him, but blocking in line seems pretty good. Nuance on the route running, selling that trick, you have to be convincing, and he really sold it well, and the hands were just good for me. Yeah, he's got worse every single year as a college player, and that is not ideal. But I kind of think at the tight end position, it's tough. Like, it's not often used in college, and I think that might undersell his skill set. And you have a look at the production that he's put out there across his entire career, as opposed to just thinking about what happened last year, and what I've seen on tape, and I think there's something which can be there. Now, I'm torn as to whether I want to say he's going to make it on the 53, because I agree, Ash. I think I would probably favour taking Shane Zylstra over him, but I do think this is someone, especially with the new rules, where I think we're going to take 4 and have 1 on the practice squad, and if that's true, well, he's going to be the guy. I just think he's going to be the guy over Hesser, who we've obviously has NFL experience, but I prefer Rex. So I think this is someone who's going to be on the team, albeit in a practice squad role in year 1, and we'll see where he can go after that.
Surprisingly, I didn't bear in mind that special teams also might probably do. Yeah, because in being a practice squad, it's just for me. Maybe it's because it's just a sitter. Like, I'm looking at a whole thing, and I'm like, you never really showed anything in college. Like, it's like with what recently with Manu. Like, you want to see that, like, one bam. That's why he's here kind of play, and I didn't really see that from Rex. Maybe I didn't watch the right game, and if I watch a bit more of him, I'll see it. But for me, I just never really saw that. This is why he's an NFL player kind of moment.
I have missed a player in terms of who I've watched, so I'm hoping that you've watched him, which is the defensive end, Isaac Ukwu. Good, you've seen him. Excellent. I can tee you up with my prep, but I just haven't watched the bloody game yet. Starter for James Madison in 21-22, and a starter for Ole Miss when he transferred to a bigger school in 2023. Had a 7.52 RAS. It was 6'2.5", 261 pounds, 29 on the bench is one of the best bench scores you'll get from an edge. 4.87 40-yard dash, which is middling. 1.65 10-yard split is pretty good. 4.5 shuttle, 7.35 3-cone is average. Explosion grades, 36 vert, 9.11 broad is up there. That's pretty great. And in 2023 per PFF, 73.8 overall, 60.5 run defense, 70.4 tackle grade, 81.4 pressure, 72 coverage, 32 pressures on the year, 5 sacks. Also had 30 tackles and 4.5 tackles for a loss. Actually, Pro Football Reference have him with 3.5 sacks, PFF have him with 5, so take of that what you will. What do you think of Ukwu as a prospect?
I liked him a lot. Admittedly, it might be because I watched a game from him last 2022 when he was at James Madison. So I watched his 2022 game at Old Dominion, where he posted a pretty damn good overall sort of performance according to PFF. 78.6 overall grade, 72.7 pass, 72.7 run defense with a 71.1 tackling, 73.4 pass rush. So he was just a good all-round kind of edge rusher. And it's a loose comparison, at least in terms of how he performed looking at the paper. He was very much of that sort of commish mold where didn't really make any splash plays in that game. He had 6 total pressures with 1 hit and 5 hurries, but made a tackle in the run game. Admittedly wasn't a stop, but what can you do kind of thing. Just a very good, what we were saying earlier with Clemens and Hudson, where they were just good all-round reliable players. Same with Ukwu. Did a bit of everything. He even, at James Madison, admittedly just like the one game he didn't do it, but he even dropped into coverage at points. This is someone that you can kind of use if we do those zone blitzes again, which I know we hated the hell out of last year. Vietnam War flashbacks to Seattle game. But there's someone that's got his experience there. So again, Sam Roll, we've been looking for someone there. This is a guy who, admittedly, 2022, it might be a year off, but this is a guy who only posted 1 coverage grade below 60 when he did it, and that was against Marshall. Every other time he posted above 60, including good games against Louisville and Coastal Carolina, who were not the worst offenses in the world. Like obviously Louisville, that point, were just on the up and up. But Coastal Carolina, that was during the Grayson McCall era. They knew how to pass the ball, and he posted a 72.1 grade in that. This is just a good all-round edge rusher. I'm not saying he's going to be like the next coming of the greatest Sam ever, or Jack, if we still keep that role, obviously. But this is someone who, if he sticks around till training camp, if he gets, he's going to as the UDFA, actually. Yeah, he's going to. Someone that sticks around in camp, could shout in the preseason and could be on a practice squad. And then if something happens and we need someone to step up who we can rely on for a couple of games in edge room, we could be that. He honestly could.
All right, nice. Well done, man. All right, we'll move on to the other edge rusher of the group, Nate Lynn from William and Mary. I have him as an edge rusher, although Raz have got him as a defensive tackle, which will do him some favours in some areas and not in others.
Yeah. He's definitely an edge. He's definitely a big edge.
I think he's a big edge, yeah. Anyway, 8.28 for a defensive tackle in the Raz scale. 6'2.5", 253 pounds. Super light for an interior guy. Obviously, wouldn't be so if he was an edge rusher. 20 on the bench, which is pretty solid. 4.82 40-yard dash and a 1.65 10-yard split is pretty handy. 4.62 in the shuttle, 7.43 in the 3-cone is middling for an edge rusher. 30.5-inch vert, 9'6" broad is also fine. PFF have him as an 85.1 overall grade. Obviously, he played for William and Mary. Sorry, back up 19 to 20, 21 to 23 as a starter. So 85.1 at William and Mary, remembering the level of competition he's playing at. Same college as Colby Sawsdall played at, so they should know each other well. So you'd hope that if he was going to land with the Lions, he would destroy his competition. The PFF grade seems to suggest that he was doing that. Run defense grade of 84, tackle grade of 60.1, not ideal. Pressure grade 90.4, and 51.9 in coverage. He had 37 pressures on the year and 7 sacks. Super dominant in his first year as a starter in 2021. He was a team captain in 2023 with 58 tackles, 11 tackles were lost. The team actually had him with 8 sacks compared to 7 per PFF, and he had 2 forced fumbles as well. What do you think of Nate Lynn?
I really liked him. So I started watching him quite a few weeks back when we brought him in for an official 30 visit. I'm not going to call it top 30 visit because we know we're not supposed to do it anymore. We brought him in for a 30 visit, and I was like, oh, William Mary guy. Did it with Colby last year. Let's take a look. And admittedly, it was more of like a cut-up of games rather than actual games, because at that point wasn't searching deep enough, because like I just want to watch a bit of this guy. I'm not going too deep for him. But yeah, I liked what I saw. Like, he'll probably again be someone that will play that speed rusher role because 260 doesn't really have the weight, but again, put him in an NFL weight room. Maybe you can put an extra 10, 15 pounds on him and you can use him at both spots. But he's pretty damn good. Like, has a few tackling issues. I know this year wasn't the best grade, especially starting off the year with back-to-back grades of below 41 in grade tackling from PFF. But again, just an all-round decent guy, good against the run, good in pass rush. I know him and his edge teammate for the first 5 weeks of this college season, they were the top producing pass rush duo in the NCAA, which is pretty damn mad. But again, someone's a good hard worker, team captain. Obviously, the team probably know a bit about him from scouting Storstall and speaking to Storstall. And you listen to Riz's podcast, the Scouts Notebook Commit. He had the best of Manu at points during rookie minicamp because he was able just to go, get low, stay low against him. So he understands how to use leverage against tackles, which when you're coming from like a smaller school, it's good to show that you know.
$53 million a year. Wow.
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 So I'm sorry, Nate Lynn, but this is big news. We need to talk about this. Whoa, boy. Woo!
Okay. We will talk about the Jared Goff extension in a minute. $170 million guaranteed. Holy God. Right. We'll talk about that more in just a second. We're going to finish off Nate Lynn. Then we'll talk about Jared Goff. And then we'll finish off the rest of these guys. Yeah. Nate Lynn is making the roster. He's making the 53. I'm just saying it from the outset. Plays a 5 to 9 technique. Actually looks best for me as an outside linebacker in a 3-4. That's where I sort of see his role. Can put his hand in the dirt, but I like him as a stand-up guy on the outside. As a stand-up outside linebacker, had a really nice stunt around the other side of the center. Really good speed off the edge, really good bend, forced a hold and the pressure, and then got up off the floor to get a half a sack in that one rep. I mean, super impressive. Rapid off the line, really quick, plays special teams. He was on the field goal block unit as well. I saw for William and Mary. Didn't see whether he was on the punt unit or anything like that, but I did see that. One of the things about him, I think, with the tackling aspect of things and the run defense, he's often rushing without concern for the run game. I mean, he's just rushing the passer, and if he manages to get a tackle in the run game on the way to trying to hit the quarterback, that is what it is. But quite often, he's just trying to beat the guy in front of him. And that does mean sometimes people just run past him in the run game. So I think he needs to be coached a little bit to actually take the run a little bit more seriously. Really impressive motor. So he's got drive, he's got determination, he keeps working even when beat. And that actually has led to him saving some big plays. It's led to him getting some clean-up sacks. It's led to him getting some running backs for only a couple of yards when they've kind of had to do a little bit of running about back there to try and get forward. He's someone who's always pursuing. He's got a wicked spin move. I mean, think Hutchinson light, very nifty, effective. Does it several times in the game I watched. And so I'm talking about this guy and all of these plays. This was the one game last year he had against FBS opposition when they played Virginia. Now, Virginia were not a good team last year. I think they were 0-4 going into this game and somehow won it after William and Mary got out to a good lead. But it's going up against FBS opposition and he's making him look stupid at times. Had great speed as a speed rusher on the outside. Sometimes when the offensive line get hands on him, he can struggle to release on his block. That is the only thing I would say there. So run defense needs a little bit more priority, but I think that was scheme. I think that's what William and Mary asked him to do. Just rush a passer. We'll worry about the rest of it. You go and do your thing. So I'm not going to give him a knock on that massively. Can he disengage from offensive linemen when they get a hold of him? I think there's enough there in terms of speed, agility, work rate, bend, where he can hang as edge 6, especially given that he can do some special teams work, and I think that will come in real handy. So yeah. I love this guy, and the fact that Colby knows him, I think, is actually going to give him a bit of leg up too.
Yeah, so I quickly looked it up. He has also, last year he played 9 snaps on the punt coverage team, with 29 in the field goal. Obviously, 6 of them come against Virginia. The only thing I want to push back on is maybe I don't see the fit at outside linebacker because he's not as good in coverage. Maybe it's because I'm comparing to Ukwa, who's the guy who's fighting out, who was a lot better. Like, it was a lot of like not as good. I can see him being there. It's just, for me, I want to stick him at a speed rusher role behind Hutch because we don't really have anyone there. Like, maybe you can slide Davenport over. But for me, if Hutch goes down, Link can step in and produce 75% of what he can. And then you've still got enough on the other side to make it work. So I can see him maybe working at Sam, but it'd be a James Houston situation again, in which case stick with what the devil you know than the devil you don't.
All right. We've got halfway through this list of UDFAs, and now let's just take a break to talk about this Jared Goff extension. So, Jared Goff has been re-signed per Schefter. 4 years, $212 million extension, which means he is signed for the next 5 seasons. Which means that will entirely encase the Hendon Hooker contract length. $170 million guaranteed. That makes him the highest paid Detroit Lion in franchise history. Ash, we've known they've talked seriously about an extension for Jared Goff throughout this offseason. He's seen all of the people that we thought were going to get extension this offseason get paid ahead of him in Amon Rosenbaum and Penny Sewell. He's had to wait. They've always talked positively about talks. There were some rumours that he might get some sort of discount done for the Lions as gratitude for us giving him, throwing him a bone. But frankly, statistically, he's been a top 5 quarterback for the last 2 seasons, and now an EAV of $53 million a year. He is being paid like the production says he should get paid.
Yeah, he is now the second highest paid QB in the NFL behind Joe Burrow. And very well deserved. As you said, he's had to sit and wait. We obviously covered the Amon Saul extensions when those happened. Literally ran back home from the Motown Museum to do so. And yeah, now it's Goff's turn. And it's well deserved. Like, you look at some of the people behind him, Justin Herbert, he outjawed him last year. Lamar Jackson, okay, yeah, didn't do so well against him last year, but Jalen Hurts, we did better than him last year. Jalen Hurts is a good QB, don't get me wrong, but having AJ Brown and Devonta Smith to throw to helps a lot. Jared Goff came in as a complete cast-off. As we all know, we traded for him, didn't trade for him, but he was part of the Stafford trade. Came in, not the highest expectation, like, he'd be a bridge guy, we could draft a QB. And he's gone from that to top 5 QB, fundamental part of this offense. Like, yeah, everyone, I love Ben Johnson to bits and that, but this offense wouldn't be half as good without Goff because it's built around Goff, what he does well. And now he's got that security. He's getting paid. And it'll be like the Stafford contract when that was signed. Because I was just about when I started my fandom, and everyone's like, you can't be paying Stafford that much. Within 2-3 years, it looked like bargain basement kind of contract, as you've probably seen what I've seen. I'm so happy for Goff. And now next up, Decker. Let's reward our guys because Decker's been shit as well. Let's give him an extension as well, and then we could go into the season relatively happy. I don't think after Decker's anyone else that really stands out for an extension. That's good enough for me. Let's just tie everyone Decker down, even if it's a year, go into the next season completely happy, and everyone that we need to pay is paid. They can be happy as well. They don't have to have the worry being paid on their mind. They can just focus on playing, and Super Bowl, here we come, baby.
Many thanks to Mile Marker 301 for the $20 super chat, says Goff. It is at this time that I feel obligated and delighted to offer the official Goff apology sheet, because halfway through his first season with the Lions, I was, and I'll say this now, I was well on board with him being benched at the Rams. I thought it was the right decision at the time. I will not pretend I thought otherwise. He looked like a person who was devoid of confidence, and I thought that benching him gave the Rams the best way of winning in the playoffs in 2018. Came to the Lions in 2019, And it suffices to say that it didn't fill me with confidence when he came over, given that I felt that way in the previous season. And halfway through, 8 games in, I said on this show, cut him now. I did. I said cut him now. And it's not great. It hasn't aged well. I hold my hands up and fully apologise to the man, because I will celebrate my great takes and I will highlight my bad ones, because I feel like that drives the credibility, generally speaking, of this show. We take responsibility for our words. I was wrong. Goff has fully deserved everything we have. Everything we've been in the last 2 seasons is... that's offside. Everything that we have in the last 2 seasons is owed to him. He is a culture setter. He is someone who comes in every day and works his ass off. Like, people look up to him. You see him in press conferences, and I just think, God, I love that man. That's my guy. So, in terms of the man off the field, absolutely love him. The charity work that he does off the field, like, he just seems the most humble guy. I absolutely love him. And then when it comes to what he's done on the field, the connection between Amon-Ra St. Brown and him, you can't just replicate. Amon-Ra St. Brown as a 4th round pick was very briefly the highest paid wide receiver in the NFL. He isn't going to get that with everyone. He wouldn't get that with... I don't think he'd get that with Patrick Mahomes. He definitely wouldn't get it with Josh Allen. Mahomes maybe would be able to do that. He wouldn't be able to get it with Matthew Stafford. There's no chance. It's not his sort of receiver. You need a certain type of receiver to make the best of Goff's talents. And, frankly, the other way round. Without Amon-Ra St. Brown, maybe Goff wouldn't be the quarterback he is. So you pay both or play neither. And we've paid both. And I'm so happy about it, because that connection is going to be huge. Now, it puts a lot on them both being healthy throughout their entire contracts. I have faith. Goff has shown throughout his career he is an absolute hard man. Yeah, he had the thumb injury in 2018 when the playoffs were happening. That's the only time I can remember where he's missed any games. So it's just one of those things where I'm like, you know what? I'm going to take this guy being an Iron Man. I remember Stafford after the first year, and he was an Iron Man too. We've been really fortunate with quarterbacks who can just play, especially through the pain. He makes me proud to be a fan. I will see him go out there, and you know what? Even when we are down on the scoreboard late in the 4th quarter, it always feels like we have a chance. And he's the quarterback to make that happen for us. He's the guy making checks at the line, getting us into good situations. He called the play in the Chargers game that got Montgomery that 75-yard run. Like, can your quarterback do that? I don't think that this is a guy who's as physically talented as some of the guys out there. But you know what? I think he's comfortably better than I feel like Matt Ryan has been in his career, in the way that he's playing right now. I feel like he is probably playing better than Phillip Rivers has in his entire career. In terms of like the level that he's playing at right now. And you know what? Sometimes it's nice to have the flashy guy who can be the dual threat guy. But Goff's my quarterback, and he's going to be here maybe for the rest of his career, and I couldn't be happier.
Yeah, so as it's come out since we're talking, the new deal puts him on contract through 2027, and then there's a team option for 2028.
That's not a 4-year extension. That's a 4-year redo. Okay? It's a 3-year new contract with an option of a 4th.
Yeah.
So that's been
Tom Pelissero,
yeah, that's been misreported then initially. So apologies for that.
Yeah, and the guarantees, as Jerry Reisman's quite rightly put as well, aren't that much. 170 million. That puts him below. I had the list up for a second ago.
I got it here. Deshaun Watson, Joe Burrow, Justin Herbert, Lamar Jackson, Jalen Hurts, below all of those.
That's not that bad. As you say, I trust Goff to be good enough through 2027. Of course, I can say that, and then I look stupid if he does fall off the face of a cliff. I don't think it's Deshaun Watson, who got the big payday and has done fuck all since. That is not Jared Goff. That is not who he is. And yeah, I'm so happy that I chose to wear this particular jersey on this show. I made the right choice in Ford Field. And then I did not make the right choice with the washing machine settings. But Jared Goff, fucking love you, bro. You ever listen to this somehow?
Yeah, I mean he's the guy who encapsulates everything that Detroit is. Got chucked off the scrap heap by a flashy team thinking they were better than him. And he's come here and said, you know what, I'm better than you think. And not only is he better than you think, he's living up to his draft grade, to his draft pick. Like, he's worth so much more now. And I just... He can take us to the promised land. Genuinely believe, with the roster as constructed, that he can get us to the Super Bowl and that we can win a Super Bowl with him. So the fact that he's here for the duration, I'm delighted.
He was half... Well, it wasn't even on him. He was half a game away from taking us to the promised land. And he's been there before. Yeah. He, as Ash Thompson quite literally pointed out, and it's a slight joke based on what it looks like, he is Knuff. He is Knuff for us.
I love that. I love it. Cool. All right. If you guys have any Goff questions, I'll put it in for the end of the show. We are going to carry on with our look at the last 7 of our UDFAs. 2 are specialists, and we're not going to spend a huge amount of time on them. I know you've watched them. I haven't, so that's going to at least reduce the time somewhat. Many thanks to Carlton Wood for the £10 tip, which says Goff ends, of the $12.55 tip if you are that way inclined. All right, next up in our UDFA deep dive is the linebacker from Ohio State mentioned by Ryan earlier, Steele Chambers. Now, he's been a starter for Ohio State for the last 3 seasons. He's got a 4.63 RAS score at the linebacker position, just a shade over 6 foot. He's 6.5 foot, sorry. 226 pounds, 19 on the bench, all pretty low, unfortunately. 4.75 40-yard dash is middling. 1.68 10-yard split is also middling. Good agility grade. 4.23 on the shuttle was great. 7.133 cone is fine. And then in the explosion grades, he's just okay. 33.5 on the vert, 9'4" broad. In 2023, PFF gave him a 63.3 overall grade with a 55.5 run defense, 75.3 tackle, 48.6 pressure, and 77.4 coverage grade. Pro Football Reference said his production was 13 games, 83 tackles, up 1.5 tackles for loss, an interception, and a pass defended. What do you think about Steele Chambers?
Anthony Pittman 2.0. And I mean that in a good way. I promise I'm not disparaging him. Admittedly, I watched his game against Notre Dame this year, which was by PFF his worst game of the season, but that's what Cadiz had. So, but they had that in Penn State, and I knew you watched Penn State, so I was trying to get the other side of things. He's a very good, what I'd like to call a point and shoot linebacker, where you just tell him one thing, you just say, attack the A gap, attack the B gap, just tell him a gap to attack, and he can go do that. But he can't do much else, which is okay. There's use for that. Early down linebackers is still a thing. And then you can hopefully teach him the other things. It's what with Iffy, for example, like when I first saw Iffy at safety, it was kind of, he is a point and shoot guy. And then you were able to build him up to the point where he is now, where he is able to handle multiple reads at once. And there is a way to do that still, where you put him down on his early down line, and then you sort of use him on special teams if he fits the new system, and you teach him up that way. And then over time, you can build up the sort of mental processing, because 3 years at Ohio State, for the most part, you obviously play Michigan every year. You probably go to a bowl game and playoffs. You get a lot of reps, but for the most part, you're not playing against the best guys either. So maybe he just needs a bit more time to marinate, because he's still 20. He's just about turned to 24 in July. So he's still got a bit of time to learn. But he just needs that mental processing to just that switch to come on, which it can happen. And I'm willing to take a risk on the UDFA if you can get that switch to turn on, especially with Calvin Shepherd, who honestly, over the past couple of years, in my opinion, has made himself one of the best linebacker coaches in the league. I think he can do it.
So I watched the Penn State game. Good run instincts, came forward to make an important and difficult tackle, good wrap up. Gave up a really big reception to Theo Johnson in his zone, just appeared to lose the fact that he was there in zone coverage, which was a really big bust. Good read taking a guy in coverage and preventing a pass. Good read on a quarterback keeper and a nice tackle for short gain. Good blitzing instincts. Agile player. Times the snap really well. Good instincts and closing speed on a trick play behind the line. Nice run defense rep versus a quarterback keeper again with a lead blocker, and he still managed to make the tackle even though it was 2-on-1 against him. This is a guy who I think his instincts are good, generally speaking, especially against the run. When it comes to coverage, in zone coverage as a linebacker, I think he's poor. Just seems to not have the speed sometimes, or he's kind of reacting a bit too late to people. He's not seeing some things sometimes. The tackling is very good. Like, I really, for college football, where the tackling technique is so poor, I think he's one of the best ones I've seen in this entire cycle, which is good. I'm with Ryan. I don't see him as a linebacker. I don't see that his traits or skill set translate a linebacker at all. I mean, at 226 pounds and at 6 foot, I think he's loaded as much as he can onto his frame. I don't see him bulking up, and I don't think at 226 pounds and him being as slow as he is, that he can hang at linebacker. So I think the move back to safety will help him. I think that strong safety and the fact that he can read the ball well against the run, the fact that he can hit quite well, that he wraps up really well, that it's actually going to suit him quite well. So if he moves back, I can see that being a really good move for him. But he's the most meh of meh linebackers in a really good situation at Ohio State. And that's not really an endorsement of his skill set. So can he make the practice squad? Yes. Can he make the 53? Almost certainly no. Will he get elevations from the practice squad if he gets there? I think undoubtedly yes, he might. The problem with him playing strong safety is that there's a lot of strong safeties in this group, and we'll come on to the rest of them later, but he's going to be in a fight if that's where his future lies. So let's see what happens, but we'll get on to profiling the rest of these guys. Starting with another linebacker safety guy, Deron Gilbert from Northern Illinois. He started at Lafayette. He was the backup in 19 and 20 and became the starter in 21 and 22 before moving to Northern Illinois as the starter for his final season in 2023. 4.75 RAS score, 6'1", just a shade over, and 214 pounds, so exceptionally light for a linebacker. Only 14 on the bench, also very low for a linebacker. 4.7 140-yard dash is pretty good. A 1.55 10-yard split is very impressive. That is very fast over 10 yards. 4.45 shuttle, 7.223 cone is merely okay. 34-inch vert, 9'7" broad is merely okay. PFF grade 68.9 overall, 60.7 run defense, 66.5 tackle, 57.9 pressure, 76.9 coverage. Played as a mid linebacker in 2023. 13 games, 51 tackles, 2.5 tackles for loss, half a sack, and a pass defended. Ash, what do you think of Deron Gilbert from Northern Illinois?
I really like him. I really do. Like the fact that he's a linebacker safety kind of hybrid, just good cover. Like first and foremost, good coverage and good tackling. Two things I really look for, because those are what I've valued. That's what I think we need in our linebacker room. As was quite right pointed out by Wright earlier, it's going to go for an evolution over the next couple of years as Campbell steps into his Mike role full time. We don't. Anzalone is going to possibly go. We don't know what's happening with Derek. Don't know what's going to happen with Malcolm. We need a bit of refreshment there, and I could see Gilbert playing the will really damn well for us. And of course, special teams. I think you can do really around special teams as well. So as a potential will 3, because Anzalone is going to be will 1, Malcolm's going to be will 2, as will 3, and then special teamer, I really like it.
So I watched Boston College in 2023, 65.9 PFF grade. And I loved what I saw. Boston College, not a bad 2023 team, but not the best. Does well to fill his gaps. Really good tackling technique. Super impressive in that respect. Got manhandled in run blocks sometimes by the offensive line. I mean, at 214 pounds, you can't expect him to win those, but he just looks tiny in comparison. A great first step quickness. I said about that 155 10-yard split, and it really shows up on tape. Seems to have pretty good coverage instincts. Not the most agile. I mean, getting him moving sideways isn't where he's going to win. His hips seem pretty tight. Don't know if he can flip them very well. Coverage instincts are good though. So, if he can get himself pointing in the right direction and hit in a straight line, that's where he's going to win. And you see, even though he's only got 14 on the bench and he's 214 pounds, seems to love the contact and the blocks and tackles with absolute enthusiasm of a man, with 40 pounds more than he actually does. Does some really likeable things. There is absolutely no way he can play linebacker in the NFL at 214 pounds. This is another guy, when it says linebacker/safety, he's a safety, and he's a strong safety. So much like Steel Chambers, same sort of profile as this guy. But, I mean, Deron Gilbert at that sort of size, Steel Chambers has 30.5-inch arms. Deron Gilbert has 34-inch arms. You're talking about an entirely different type of player. Like, this guy is long in spite of only being 6'1". So I think he works very, very well as a safety, given that he's got really good coverage instincts and he's quick off that first step, which means he's going to be able to cover quite a lot of the field. It will take him a little bit. I'd have him as an outside shot to make the roster, given the lack of depth at safety. I think it's more likely he makes the practice squad. But I see some really good upside here. I really like him, and we know from Riz that he had a good couple of reps as well in camp so far. So I think he's got a fighter's chance, shall we say. All right, we're going to move on to Morris Norris from Fresno State. He was the starter in 2022 and 2023. RAS score of 5.31 at the safety, ranked as a safety by Raz, corner safety, DB. 5'10", 181, 10 on the bench. Very poor size, height, weight bench. Good speed though. 165 10-yard split is slow, but a 2.6 20-yard split is amazing. So how do you reconcile that? He managed to run 165 for 10 yards, but 0.95 for that 10 to 20. So get him going and he can really motor. And a 4.53 in the 40 overall. I mean, he's got some long speed. It's just that short area stuff which isn't great. And despite that, he's got great explosion. 38-inch vert, 10'4" broad. I think maybe he's just got a bad start out of the blocks both times when he ran it, but actually maybe he's just faster than he showed there. 4'1" on the shuttle, 6'9", 6'3" cones, so the guy can move. PFF in 2023 have him as 72.6 overall grade, 71.2 run defense, 64.7 tackle, 62.9 pressure, 72.6 coverage. He is a nickelback. And Pro Football Reference have him as 13 games, 59 tackles, 9.5 tackles for loss, 3.5 sacks, 2 interceptions, 10 passes defended, and a forced fumble. Ash, what do you think? Oh no, you didn't watch him, did you, Morris Norris?
Yeah, I haven't seen him or Strickland, unfortunately.
There we go. Okay, so I watched him against New Mexico, 62.6 grade against them. He's a really smooth mover in coverage, really light on his feet. On the nickel blitz, great instincts, managed to avoid the running back really well and had nice technique for the sack. Good communication, seems to really enjoy tackling, which you love to see from a nickel. Really competitive. I mean, I noted, and I noted this for no one else, he's a football player. Like, the Lions are going to love this guy. I did note that he might be an illegal contact machine, because obviously illegal contact is not a thing in college. He still seemed to kind of initiate contact more than 5 yards down the field. He's going to have to cut that out in the NFL. Really good tackle technique again. So he showed it in the sack, showed it again in a run tackle. Quick and explosive. So, that 10-yard split I don't believe, because it really showed up on tape that he was really quick that way. Hips seem a little tight, which, when you have reasonably good agility grades, I didn't really expect, but sometimes just flipping the hips, it didn't seem fantastic. This is someone that the Lions have had interest in for some time. It's a good piece by Mike Payton on A to Z Sports talking about the fact that the Lions looked at him in March pre-draft. They went out to his pro day at Fresno State and took him out to dinner. I won't spoil the rest of the article because Mike's done really great work doing this, but he's got a great way into the NFL in terms of where he's been and how hard he's had to grind to get where he is right now. And that speaks to kind of him being a football player, if you see what I mean. I saw it on tape, but the journey really speaks to the off-field stuff that's allowed him to get that sort of grit mentality. So I've seen stuff there where I think, again, this is another person with a fighter's chance. The problem which he's going to have is that we have just restocked so much of the corner room that Kindle Vildor's our corner 6, and frankly, I just think Vildor's better than him right now. So if Norris does make it, I think he's certainly going to be a practice squad player. But given that we haven't got a huge amount of corners outside of those top 6, I think there's a fair to middling chance that he does make the practice squad, and I'd be delighted if he did, because I think in a disaster territory that he'd be able to come in and not look terrible. So Maurice Norris, enjoyed watching him play. And we'll move on to Lawrence Strickland now, the strong safety from Ball State. He was this backup in 2022 and the starter in 2023, so this is not a guy with a huge amount of college production. A RAS of 7.81. He's 5'9", so pretty short for a safety. Pretty short for an NFL player. 199 pounds though, which is pretty damn stacked at 5'9". 18 on the bench, again very impressive for someone of his height. 40-yard dash of 4.55 and a 1.58 10-yard split. Those are very good speed stats. You'd hope that he was pretty quick if he was going to be that height. 4.4 on the shuttle is not fantastic. 6.953 cone is good, dipping under that 7-second barrier that you look for. 38-inch vert, 10'5" broad, elite explosion grade. So he's fast and explosive, short but strong, side-to-side quickness maybe lacks, 3 cone, passable. PFF have him as a 59.4 overall grade in his 1 year as a starter. 69.2 run defense, 40.6 tackle grade, 87.5 pressure, 53.3 rush coverage. In 12 games, he got 31 tackles, 2 tackles for a loss, a sack, 2 passes defended, and a forced fumble. Was Lawrence Strickland another one you haven't seen yet, or have you seen him?
Yeah, that Lawrence Strickland's one I haven't seen yet, unfortunately, because the guy we came up, we're going to talk about in a second, he's a guy I've definitely seen.
All right, so Strickland, I watched his game against Georgia in 2023, so you couldn't come up against harder opposition, and he often lined up at outside corner, even though he is probably going to be a strong safety in the league, considering he's 5'9". He's not going to be an outside corner in the NFL. He had a 59.2 PFF grade in this game, and a 59.4 overall grade. So despite the fact that he came up against Georgia, his grade in this game was an average of what he was throughout the entire season. They didn't make him look stupid. Overcommitted downhill for a run in play action and got burned for a big game. So, instincts sometimes maybe not fantastic, but, who doesn't get burned on a play action every now and again? And I think, play action just lacks so much in college football that you just may not have seen too much of it. So I'm not going to burn him too much for that. Bit handsy on the back end. This is someone else who's going to get pinged for illegal contact if he doesn't learn to cut it out. Fluid mover. Loves to hit people despite his 5'9" frame. He is there for it. Amazing coming downhill to hit on open field tackles. Like, he's just got a nose for it, and his technique is very good. There was a natural pick play where he couldn't get around the picker. Even though it was 10 yards downfield, it was well executed by Georgia, and there's a quick touchdown there, which is a shame. He lined up in press man, which you just don't see very much at college. And he absolutely ruined him. I mean, the play didn't go anywhere near where Strickland was. I'm not sure who the receiver was, but he wasn't small. I think it might have been Rosemary Jack Saint, who was someone regarded as a really good blocking wide receiver that was linked with the Lions in day 3. I think it was him. I'm not 100% sure. But Strickland ruined him. Like, made him look... one of those reps where you just see sometimes the corner just push the receiver over for no reason. It was one of those. It was really good. Yeah. I'm like, great guy. I love this. Often rolls into single high coverage. So I said he played often outside receiver, outside corner, but sometimes he was kind of playing in a 2 high shell and then rotating into a single high. Didn't look out of character doing that, but 5'9" guy in single high is going to worry me a little bit. You know, if a tall receiver just goes down the field or if a tight end runs a seam, that's not a guy you wanting to be giving you help. Tackling form doesn't look amazing. Now, I said he's amazing coming downhill to hit, but he's very much of the Kirby Joseph school of tackling, as in, I'm just going to go with the shoulder and hope it works. He does not wrap up. He goes too high. He's a bit of a hands tackler as opposed to an arm tackler. That's going to need to improve. There was one rep where they ran 4 verts, and he's the safety in 2 high. And faced with the quarterback throwing to his zone, he took the inside guy when he had inside help, which left the outside receiver completely free, and Beck threw it to the completely open outside guy. It's just not ideal. So, you know, he missed the play action thing, and there was that. Tackling form isn't great, but there's just something to like about him in terms of just being gritty, trying to ruin wide receivers when he gets the chance. He loves to hit. This is a toolsy guy who's going to take a while to develop. Even if he gets to the practice squad, I wouldn't expect him to get elevated in the first season. I think it's going to take a year or 2 for him. I think given the fact that we've also got to talk about Chellan Garnes, we've got Deron Gilbert who's going to play strong safety. We're going to talk. We talked about Steele Chambers who might be a strong safety, and Maurice Norris might be a strong safety as well. He might be a free safety actually, but got all these guys playing safety despite the tools. This might be someone that I think is probably going to be on the outside looking in despite the tools, because sometimes something is just a bit lacking in his football IQ.
Yeah, that sounds about fair. Like, I looked it up and you were right, it is that receiver.
Gets in, thank you.
you know your players.
There we go. And right, the final player on defense is the strong safety from Wake Forest, Chellan Garnes. Now, he was a backup for Navy in 2019. Thank you for your additional comment, Ash, in there, because he didn't play in 2020 because he transferred, and the old rules for the NCAA transfer rule said he had to sit out a year to do that. He went to Wake Forest. He was a backup there in 2021 before starting in 2022 and 2023. His 6.95 RAS score. He's another short one, 5'9.5", 199 pounds, 18 on the bench, which is pretty damn good for someone, again, of his weight and height. 4.56 40-yard dash is pretty good. 1.58 10-yard split is pretty good. 4.32 shuttle is mediocre. 7.03 cone, not quite under 7 seconds, but not far away, that's fine. 37-inch vert, 9'10" broad. The one thing that really sticks out to me is his hand size and arm length. 8.5-inch hands, 30-inch arms. This is a small guy with small hands and small arms. So, you know, he's a... I don't want to call him a T-Rex because that would oversell how tall he is. He's just a small guy. You know, he's a normal small guy who's fast and explosive and pretty strong. PFF have him as a 67.2 overall grade last year, 69 in the run, 73 in the tackle, 76 in pressure, 63 in coverage. Pro Football Reference have his production at 12 games, 61 tackles, 2 tackles for loss, sack and a half, 5 passes defended, 2 forced fumbles. 2 fumble recoveries, beg your pardon. Ash, what did he make of Chellan Garnes?
I just love how you call him a small guy when this guy's fucking shredded. This guy, if you put him on a bodybuilding stage, he would not look out of place. He's, dude, you know the old pic of AJ Brown and DK Metcalf at their pro days? Just stick Chellan Garnes in there and, again, would not look out of place. This guy's fucking beast. Of course, I've watched one game with him this season. That was week 9 this year at Florida, at home against Florida State, where he actually had a pretty good game in all aspects of the game, stuff. So he made 5 he missed one of his 6 tackle attempts, which isn't the greatest. Like, he has had a bit of a missed tackle problem, it seems, this season. Like, nearly 15% of his tackles attempts is missed, which isn't the best. But against us, made 5 solo tackles, 3 run stops. He was targeted 3 times for 2 completions for 40 yards. But he also got it. That also what other one his other target was a PBU. So this is a guy who probably projects best as that strong safety role again, but he has a bit of coverage upside. So he could be a decent iffy backup in terms of probably will be best in the box against the run and blitzing. He didn't do that against us, but I know the game that you watched, he did have some good blitzes. But yeah, he's going to be mostly a box guy. But when we play our 2 shell, he's got enough coverage instincts to him to be able to perform adequately in coverage. So overall, I like Garns. Like, obviously, prefer AO for personal reasons, but taking off that personal bias, I can see Garm sticking around like safety 5 right now, because obviously CJ Moore will be ahead of him because of seniority. But over time, he could really earn that sort of backup role to Iffy. And then depending on how the season goes for Iffy, dare I say he could be like in that sort of range of starter where he's not exactly the greatest, but also if he starts games for you, you're not going to be too upset. But you're also looking to upgrade on him if it's possible, which is enough in the NFL. You can get by with that kind of safety play. As long as he doesn't make any big boo-boos, we should be all good with him. Plus, of course, like, he's going to be great for the team calendars. Like, female putter, like, he's going to get some female fans for the team, which is going to be great.
Yeah, so I watched the NC State game, which isn't exactly going to be a great game to watch if you're on defense, because is his first name Brennan Armstrong, the quarterback? I think it is.
The ginger rifle.
He's just a hard quarterback to guard. Like, he really likes to run, and so that really puts pressure on a defense. But despite that, is some of their best opposition. He had a 63.3 grade in that game. He's an interesting guy. So he's very, very heavy-footed. He finds changing direction difficult, and in one-on-one situations against running backs, wide receivers, quarterbacks, he often just gets wrong-footed in one-on-one situations because he just can't change direction. It often means that he actually ends up over-pursuing, and I don't think that's because he actually wants to over-pursue. He just can't change his momentum. It also means that if someone gives him a double move, if someone has a wheel route and he thinks they're just running some sort of like flat route and then they turn upfield, I think he's going to struggle against that. He's got really good long speed. I mean, when he can stick his foot in the ground, he burns and he's really fast. His tackling form's poor. He's a hands tackler again. It was frustrating to watch. Run defense instincts for the first time out of basically all of this class, really questionable. So they run some like kind of gap defense stuff, like to fill this gap, and sometimes he just takes the wrong gap. It's clearly his gap, and he just goes down the wrong way. Looks a little slow to react sometimes when players are going one way, he's still going the other. Came on a safety blitz and got a really nice sack against Armstrong. Like, it was really well timed, and he just hammers him. Overall, this is an explosive, fast guy, but at his height, the agility is just not going to cut it. And with the hand size, the arm size, the agility, and the questionable instincts, I think this is probably the lowest guy on my board of the UDFAs in terms of the people at this position. I don't see a future for him in the NFL. I just think the football IQ isn't quite there, and the agility ability doesn't make up for it. Like, he can't turn. If you can't change direction, you can't make it in the NFL, and especially his position. So I struggle to see it with Challen, unfortunately. All right, we're on to our specialists, and we're going to be relying on you here. I can tee you up, but then you're going to have to talk about them. First, it's everyone's favourite position. It's the long snapper watch. It's Hogan Hatton from Idaho. He is the starter at Idaho for the last 4 seasons. He was a linebacker in up to 2021 and then converted full-time to the long snapper position, I think, in 2022. Now, as a long snapper, his RAS is 9.89. He's 6'1", 238 pounds. He did 18 on the bench, 4.82 40-yard dash, 1.67 10-yard split, 4.5 shuttle, 7.153 cone, 36-inch vert. All great grades for a long snapper. 9-inch hands, 31.5-inch arms. Not the biggest hands and arms, but never mind, he's a long snapper. As a linebacker, as he was playing at, that translates to a 4.53 RAS score. So you're talking explosive and exceptionally talented athletically for a long snapper, but there's a reason why potentially he did not make the grade as a linebacker at Idaho. Now, PFF have him as an 81.7 overall grade for the 2023 season, but PFF struggle with specialists. So that is mainly off the back of the fact that he got 2 tackles in the entire season in special teams. And that's all you have to do to get a really good grade, is he didn't miss tackles and he made a few of them, and that's it. 2021 was his last season, as I said, as a full-time linebacker. 61.6 overall grade there. The Idaho College site reports that his 2022 season, his first season as a full-time long snapper, went entirely without a bad snap on punts, field goals, and point after tries. He also blocked a punt against Drake and got a safety against Montana, and he had 15 punt coverage tackles in 2022. So he is adept at being a multi-phase special teamer. Ash, what have you seen from Hogan Hassan?
I love him. I love him. We know we are the long snapper podcast. It is not well known. Admittedly, I don't have the eye for snaps that you do. Hopefully that will come with time. But I didn't see anything go wrong. And the fact is that he just doesn't stand there on those punt coverage. He actually goes and seeks the ball. Football player. Just football player. And as you mentioned, blocking a punt against Drake and then getting a safety. This is a guy who doesn't just snap the ball, he then goes and makes plays. I know obviously with those it was on the coverage teams as a linebacker, but the fact he's got that sort of instinct to him. Let's say, I don't know, we're facing the Bears and Fox punts it away to Mooney. I can see Hatton then running down the field, levering Mooney, forcing a fumble, and then it going for a safety. That's the kind of guy we've got here. And I know the team does like Scott Daly. He's been around a while. But we know from last season, they're not entirely sold on him. They brought in Jake McQuaid. We all know how that went over the season. I honestly think Hatton has a pretty good chance of making the team. I know this is a Scott Daly Love podcast, but Hatton is really damn good. And if we want to get younger and maybe a bit more consistent at position, because as good as Staley is, at least what I've seen of Hatton and what my evaluation of him, he's more consistent with the snaps. And on the when he snapped the ball, he can then go and find it. He can be an extra defender, which, again, with special teams being that 1% that might win us games, we saw it last year against the 49ers with Lucas, unfortunately, not being able to dump down the punt at the 1. Just those kind of things, those little edges that can give us the wins in games. I'm all for it.
I am too. I am looking at an upgrade at long snapper, and I hope that Hogan can be that. So fingers crossed. Finally, we got James Turner to come and be a camp body for the kicker position out of Michigan. So Louisville starter for 2019 to 2022, and the Michigan starter last year in the championship winning side. PFF have him as a 61.8 overall grade. As I said, overall grades mean nothing per PFF, so I told you that, but now you can forget it. His field goal grade was 84.2, which is one of the highest in the nation. 18 of 21 on field goals last year. He was 2 out of 2 in less than 30, 10 out of 10 less than 39, 3 out of 5 in less than 40 to 50, and 3 out of 4 in 50 plus. He is 65 of 66 extra points, and it's only missed once from less than 40 in his career with 44 out of 45 attempts. So you are looking at someone who's very accurate, has been all the way through his college career in less than 40-yard situations, and then upwards of 40. Interesting, although 3 from 4, 50 plus is not too bad, although I think his longest last year was 52. maybe 50, can't remember. I think it was 52. But he's not a guy regarded to have a particularly big leg. Ash, does it remind you of someone?
Exactly, yeah. And it's interesting, again, going off what Russo says on the Scouts notebook, that the team didn't really try him at field goals at rookie minicamp. It was all kickoffs, which again is partly to practice the stuff, but also it might be interesting that they almost know what they're getting out of him. He's not going to be a Jacob Bates where he can hit the long stuff, but it can be that kind of Riley Patterson, Money Badger, that kind of kicker where you're not really going to go for it past like 45, 50 with him, but within those zones, pretty much going to be, he can consistently hit it. He's obviously good enough to make the jump from Louisville, who aren't the greatest team in the world, despite going to the ACC Championship. Very good team then, but the fact they trusted him enough to get him in on a national championship winning team. And you look at his PFF grades, which again, PFF aren't that great with grading specialists, but you look over time, those grades are going up and up. So that last 4 games of the season, Mislead, Alabama was a bit of a dip. It goes from, he has 74.9, 78.5, 69. These are good grades in the pressure time against Ohio State, Iowa in the championship game, and then Washington in the national championship. He can do it in the big pressure moments as well. Like, I still want to keep Jake. I want to have Jake Bates come in and at least try, because I want that ability. Like me and you have said, with that sort of, there's 3 seconds left on the clock. We need a big guy to go and get a touchdown to win us a game. We want the X receiver for that. I can just see us being in a situation where we can't sort with the 49ers last year, where we need to kick a 52-yard field goal to win a game. I want someone I can trust to do that, because I want to win those games now. So Turner will probably be here, fight out in camp, but if we can I still give the favour to Michael Badgley right now, just because we know what we're getting out of him, and then it's all up to camp. If he can win the battle, I'm happy. He's won it fairly. Money Badger will still probably come back later in the season if we need him to. He keeps doing it every single year, it seems. But hometown signing keeps the fans happy. And then if Bates comes in and wins the job, then everyone's going to be happy and it's going to be great.
Fair. Good stuff. Well done. All right. We have not had any questions, and frankly, it's a 3-hour show. So I think we are going to very swiftly get out of here. Any final words on the Jared Goff extension before we hit the hay?
Just love it. Just love it. I love the meltdown that fans of other teams are having, especially with certain fan base from Illinois. But it's whatever. Jared Goff rules the North. Long may it continue. Fuck everyone else.
I love the sentiment. I absolutely love it. Right, we are going to wrap this here. If you're on Twitch, hang tight, because Chris Perfett has just gone live and we're going to raid him in just a second. So stay right there and we're going to go to him now. Our next show, if this is right and we do find out about the schedule in this week now, a couple of days' time, I think, then our next 2 shows are going to be about the schedule reaction. And if you've not seen us do one of these before, we do the first 8 games and we have a look at the teams we're facing and the rookie classes we might be expected to face. And then we do the same for the second 9 games in week 2. So we go in a bit more depth as to exactly how it affects us in terms of the way in which the schedule was structured, but also how the teams have changed from the end of last year up until now, who they've signed, where our perception may be a bit behind where the reality is. So you're going to want to stick around for that. Before potentially we go into our 53-man... before we perhaps start our roundtable series. And then our Detroit Lions trivia quiz is going to get going. So that's going to be really exciting. I hope that you'll stick around through the off-season with us for all of those. But I'm hoping if I can sort it out in a few weeks' time, we're going to have an NFC North roundtable with our friends that we've made in the last few months and years, and see how they're all feeling about stuff. I'm sure they'll have a lot to say about the Jared Goff extension, among other things. Like I said, the college podcast on hiatus. Anton's been in the live chat here, just chatting with the guys. He is hard at work doing his research for the conference previews. So when he's back in a few weeks' time, you'll need to check those out. Don't forget to follow us on Roar of the Lions UK, YouTube, Twitch, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok. And the Facebook group for worldwide fans is Detroit Lions Fans UK One Pride Worldwide. If you've not joined that Facebook group before, there's lots of good photos of me and Ash enjoying the draft along with lots of other people. So do go and join that. It's well worth your time. The website for us, rotluk.com. Please don't forget to subscribe, rate us 5 stars, like the video, all that good stuff. You know what to do. For now, just remains for me to thank Ryan, who obviously did the first half of the show, Ash for doing the UDFA breakdown with me. Thank you to everyone for listening, if indeed you still are. But now, let's go Lions One Pride.
Roll Pride.
Recording stopped.